Welcome in, guys. Happy Friday to everybody. Hope everybody's doing great on this Friday, March. Year's already flying by, man. Hope everybody's meeting their goals, all the things they want to do this year. But today, my friends, we are talking Star Citizen Live, and a topic that has been very polarizing within the framework of the community right now for Star Citizen. It's like the main thing that people are talking about, and that's master modes. Now, I have my own thoughts on master modes, and before I give my thoughts on it, which I'm going to do in this video as we react to this. Now, for context, I've already watched it. They don't stream this live on YouTube as well, so to stream it on Twitch and kind of react to it live is kind of hard. So I just waited until, this thing was like posted. That way we can take our time and properly dissect this. But I'm going to give my thoughts on it. And also, so you guys know, I'm not in the elite PvP dogfighting sweat boy community. I tend to lend my, if I could talk right? I tend to be on the side of more on the piracy and a little bit of the PvE stuff. And there were some things said in this live stream to me that are pretty concerning. So I want to get right into it, and let's start talking master modes. Is CIG clipping our wings? Let's find out.
And recognitions that they've gotten over the time.
Off.
I mean, you could do worse. There's a lot of bands out there that are like, I wish we were Nickelback. Hi, everybody. Welcome to...
Just going through introductions.
So, we need to fix the...
Okay, my name is Yogi. I'm a principal vehicle programmer, and I'm not the biggest Nickelback fan, if that helps.
It's all right. I wouldn't trust anybody who was.
Rich, everybody,
who are you?
What's this?
I'm Rich, and I'm a really big Nickelback.
What's this hate for Nickelback? I don't get it. Like, let people enjoy what music they like. If someone likes Nickelback, they like Nickelback, bro. It's cool. If they like it, I love it. You know what I'm saying? Let people alone. Let them enjoy their music.
Fan. So we need to fix the trust issues, Jared. And I'm the lead game designer on the vehicle experience team.
And when did you become a Force Ghost?
Very recently.
Rich is calling into us from a conservatory, which is a large glass enclosure with absolutely no way to block any of the light. So
yeah, and we've actually got sunshine today, which is very rare.
Yep. It's all right. Tell me the ways.
There's a whole lot of things to talk about here today, Cannot.
Michael, tell us who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
I am Michael, also known as Bayor. I am the Director of Player Experience.
What does the Director of Player Experience do?
Smith Family TV, welcome to the conversation.
So I run the live QA team in addition to the feedback collection team, in addition to player stats analyst, lots of different things. Basically, we're responsible for what is the game like in the public environment.
I really thought you were starting with it's a mixed bag.
That's it.
And Brent, your first time on any of our shows, I think. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'm Brent, and I go by XLB, and I'm a live QA team lead, working for live QA, and I work the issue council and try to reproduce all your bugs from issue council.
Machiavelli Blue in the chat says, Brent, you're my fave.
Preposterous.
So,
thank you.
It's great.
For clarity, right? I don't have any issues with Nickelback. I don't have any issues. There's a lot of Canadian musicians that I like bands like Evans Blue. The Weeknd's also Canadian. There's a lot of good Canadian artists. Party Next Door, Canadian. There's a lot of good music coming out of Canada, especially Toronto. So I don't understand why everybody hates Nickelback. Did they do something? I'm out of that scene, so I don't know.
When somebody's mom is in the chat. Now you said you're XLB. You called it out, Michael. You're known online as Bayor. Brent, you're XLB. Those are the names that folks who participate in Evocati and our various test streams would recognize you. But we were talking
It's a great
about
song.
before we got into Nickelback. You guys, all of you, have hidden aliases. I mean, I think most developers have their developer accounts, but you also have these hidden aliases that you'll be in the game playing as. Don't tell us who they are. That's not this kind of show. But why do we run hidden aliases? What is the virtue of jumping into?
Explain to me, because I don't get it.
Precision Universe or the Test Universe or Evocati or something without announcing who you are and being known. What's that do for us?
So there's a couple of different reasons we do that.
I grew up during the Nickelback Rise to Fame. They were kind of generic. So did I, but there were so many other generic bands during that time too. There were so many generic bands. You know how many times I heard Avril Lavigne songs growing up on the radio and I didn't want to hear that? It's even the same with like rap music. I remember like there was like one time like I was on my way home from school and I was listening to the radio and I remember changing the station and every station was playing the exact same song. Sapphire on Twitch, what's going on? How is everybody doing? Welcome in. We're talking master modes. Is CIG clipping our wings? We're going to discover this together. Now, I'm going to be honest here before we get too deep into this conversation. Some of you are not going to like my takes, and that's fine. This is a conversation, and we're just bouncing our perspectives back and forth. No one's right. No one's wrong here, okay? $54.40 guy, yeah. I'm not defending her either. I'm just saying.
Is to provide context.
I'm just saying, growing up, like there were certain musicians that the radios pushed more than others. You know what I'm saying? And her name came to mind. This is true, and we're just expressing our opinions on here. And also, when they did the Master Modes ISC episodes, they said they want to build this flight model together. So we're gonna find out if they actually want to do this together, or if they just want only positive feedback from the CIG stands. So we're gonna find out.
For folks like Yogi and Rich, when we see players say, "Hey, this particular feature isn't working as well," or we see them talking about anything, we need to get into game. We need to test that, but it doesn't create a fair test if we're on a CIG account. Like, say for instance, if I go into Master Mode Squadron Battle and I'm on Bayor, -CIG, everyone's going to focus on me, right? They're immediately going to go, "Oh my gosh, the CIG person, I'm going to go attack them." That's not a player experience, right? That's not what other people are seeing when they join those matches. So
I got removed from the live. Yeah, basically I asked, okay, so here was the purpose of my question. So the F-22 Raptor, does everybody know what the F-22 Raptor is, right? It's like probably the best fighter jet that's ever been made up to now, right? And I simply said that, hey, the F-22 can go 670 meters per second without afterburner. That's how fast it can go. And why is our speeds capped at 250 when the F-22 currently can go almost 3 times as fast as that? It doesn't make any sense to me. So, I was asking that question, and then people were trying to tell me, like, the F-22 doesn't do combat at that speed. And I'm like, yes, it does. That's its combat speed. It drops bombs. It does all kinds of things at that speed. It's like the point of that plane being so fast is so that it can't be caught and it can catch other people. That's kind of the point of the F-22 Raptor, right? And it doesn't make sense, at least to me, being 930 years in the future and we can't figure out a way to make ships go faster in combat. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, none of this to me makes sense. And also, if you really want to think about it, the F-22 is achieving these speeds in atmosphere. It's not like it's going 670 meters per second in space. It's doing this on Earth. So why on Earth can we not go faster in master modes? Like, this doesn't make sense to me. And I was trying to save that point, but since somebody asked, I had to give that point right now. But we're going to get into it a little bit more in depth later, because there are other fighter jets like the F-18, which does 590 meters per second. There, I think it's that or a little bit less, but it does faster speeds without afterburner than current ships in Star Citizen 930 years in the future in a sci-fi game. And my biggest thing is like, are we playing make-believe? Are we trying to make a realistic game? And I feel like we get, they're falling back and forth between the two. Like they want to make a realistic flight model, but they don't want to do anything that's, like make-believe. I mean, I guess energy weapons are make-believe, but I'm talking about in terms of way the ships actually fly. You know what I mean?
So it's important for us to go in on incognito accounts and test that way.
It's the whole, the scientist doesn't want to disturb the experiment kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's when you go in there, your very presence skewers the results. So you, the members.
It's the prime directive.
Is there?
We definitely.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we definitely see that, especially in live QA. If we're on a server, people are asking us questions, but we get hunted down. And so being on incognito accounts, we can go.
That I would agree with, and I have another point on that, which I want to get into later. I want to get into that point a little bit later in the conversation.
And reproduce the issues that you guys
We're
are
only
having.
5 minutes in.
And it can even be with Master Modes, like Bayor said. With
okay, we could kind of skip their little introduction.
Who have been working diligently on master modes and all things flight experience for years and years and years. And then we also made an effort this week to bring in Michael and Brent from the player experience team, another team that's been working for years to collect, test, verify, and expose potential biases and feedback, in order to work with the developers to make sure that we, collect it's not just collecting your feedback. We have to test it and analyze it and verify its veracity. That's not a good sentence. Before passing it on and making sure that it aligns with the intentions of our developers and designers and stuff like this. So we wanted to present as much of both sides of the situation as when we talk to the questions this month. We have, of course, collected questions from the community via Spectrum, which is our bespoke communication platform on robertspaceindustries.com. We let you guys vote up which ones you wanted to see answered most, and then we pulled the ones that weren't either duplicates or just outside the mandate of the Master Modes team. Like there were a number of questions that tended to veer into resource network and stuff, and we'll let those be handled by the resource team. I think we're still going to touch on it here and there from here. But let's start in with the questions. So the biggest question, the first question, the most obvious question, the one that was repeated the most, the one that we knew would come up when we were filming the interview. Yogi can attest, we scheduled this interview about 24 hours after we filmed for the Master Modes episode, a week before we aired, because we knew there would be questions, and especially this question. So we're just going to jump right into it. Given that most of the concentration has been on how Master Modes works with combat-minded ships, how will Master Modes have a substantial effect on how non-combat pilots and ships operate in the verse?
Okay, let's start with the big elephant. So in general, there is no difference between how we're treating combat ships and non-combat ships. If we want to have a consistent gameplay system, it needs to make sure that all the ships apply to the same rules, or not apply to follow the same rules. So although we have combat focused and non-combat focused ships, we still need to make sure that the non-combat focused.
Yeah, they are turning it away, and I want to kind of get into this point later because I think this is the point of why we are getting Master Modes, and I feel like it has nothing to do with the current flight model. I honestly, truly, like deep in my heart, I feel like that, because when we look at, I guess we can just get into it now. So in my opinion, like the reason why we are getting Master Modes is because of Squadron 42. I feel like if Squadron 42 never existed, there would not be a need for Master Modes. But because they are trying to sell this game to the masses, and they need to make a game that can be played with a gamepad, this is the reason why we're getting Master Modes. Because let's just be honest, like, can you tricord with a controller? Probably not. It's very hard to have input all those actors at the same time on a controller, because there's too much stuff going on, because you're boosting, you're strafing, and you're rolling all at the same time. And I feel like that would be very hard to accomplish on a controller. Not to say that you can't accomplish on a controller, I'm just saying it would be probably very hard to do. So we're getting this because I strongly feel that CIG is at least going to try to put this game onto a console. At least Squadron 42, they want to put it onto a console. So instead of developing two different flight models for a PC and console, what they're going to do is just give us one flight model and sacrifice the PC players so that they can sell this game to consoles so they can attempt to make more money. Because at the end of the day, I strongly believe that CIG's future is dependent upon the sales of Squadron 42. And if Squadron 42 fails to sell because it has a very complicated flight model, it won't be good for the future of this game. So this is my reasoning why I think we're getting master modes, because they've already tried this flight model in the past with Afterburner and nobody liked it. But you know, this is a tactic that companies do. They'll bring a feature in and then they'll take it away because people don't like it, and then they'll rebrand it as something else. And then I'm not going to call it gaslighting, but gaslight us into thinking that it's something that we actually need when the game has been just fine without it. Now, I'm going to tell you something that me and Canop did. Me and Canop got into a fight with this Razor, right? And y'all know the Razor has insane, crazy speed in a dogfight, right? I was flying an F-18 Lightning, and I think Canop was like an Arrow or something like that. And we wound up having to chase this guy through atmosphere. Like, we started in 0G, and we chased the guy in atmosphere, and then we eventually got him, right? That kind of gameplay is not going to exist in master modes. And part of the thing about flight combat is the chase. Like, I don't mind having to chase somebody down to get them. You know what I'm saying? If they are willing to be the mouse, I'm willing to be the cat. You know what I'm saying? And we're not going to have that kind of gameplay with master modes. Because if you play like any other game that has flight combat in it, there's an element in the gameplay where you are actually running and chasing other fighters down. You're not going to do that in master modes because you're going to be able to shoot over 2 kilometers with a light fighter, which is crazy. Light fighters should have a weapon cap of like 1,200 meters, and that's it. After that, your capacitors are not big enough to shoot that far. That's how that should be. You know what I'm saying? Because if you get into like master modes, like either free flight or the squadron battle, you can saturate an area, you know, 2.5 kilometers away. And it's just like, well, why even get close at that point? If I can just stay at 2.4 kilometers, I'm going to stay at 2.4 kilometers. If I can hit targets. I mean, it's not engaging gameplay. Does it get better when you get close? Sure, yeah, it does. But the fact that you can do that makes it harder to be evasive. Like, you can't evade shots. You know what I mean? And it just makes the gameplay very, very sad. Because before, you can do things like tricording to evade. And tricording is something that I had to learn. And I felt good when I learned how to tricord. Now, not everybody wants to learn how to tricord. Not everybody wants to learn how to do these maneuvers and things like that. Fine. But understand that there's always a way to do certain things in a game. And I think over the years since I played Star Citizen, they have never once explained their flight model. Like, not ever one time have they ever explained how to fly ships. I remember my first time playing this game, I couldn't even get into my ship. I'm like, how do I open the effing doors? I had to ask chat. That's crazy. You know, my first time taking off, I pressed the space bar because I was on mouse and keyboard back then, and the ship flew up and it blew up and hit the ceiling of the hangar. No one told me that I had to, you know, put my limiter on a little bit as I'm coming out of the hangar if you're on mouse and keyboard. Nobody told me this. The game didn't tell me this. There was no instruction in the game when I first got in to explain the mechanics, to explain how to fly. You know? And this problem that we have with master modes is the vault of CIG. Because since I've played the game, the flight model has been relatively the same. It's been almost the same. The only thing that's really changed are how the ships maneuver within the flight model. Okay, so within that time, they could have made combat tutorials explaining, okay, welcome to, they could make a reason, you know, and I guess that, they want to tie your Squadron 42 thing to your, your persistent universe thing, but I mean, for right now, the game's in alpha, so explain your flight model so that people know exactly what's going on with it. And you can be like, okay, well, you've taken some time off from, being in the service, join the Civilian Defense Force, and we're going to give you a refresher training on how to do combat, since it's been however many years since you've been out of service. They could have done something simple like that to explain it and be like, okay, now go decouple, do this. Now, if you go decouple, now understand your ship's going to continue to drift away. They did nothing to explain any of this. And this is the issue that we have with the flight model. But I'm going to continue because I've already had a hot take.
Ships are basically fitting that scheme. And so the effect that master mode brings for non-combat ships, let's just talk about maybe like miners and salvagers, is just the same. You're going into nav mode to travel somewhere, and you're going into SCM mode to do whatever you need to do in your normal gameplay loop. So navigation or nav mode is just for traversal. And this does not mean that industrial ships are easy fodder or something like that. If we see some kind of imbalance in our data, then we usually react to that. So if we have, for example, a Gladius that's fighting against an Aurora, the Aurora is of course not a fighter, right? But it will also not be as super easy fodder for a Gladius. So what we usually do is like we give it a little bit more health or bump up some other defenses. But in any case, like you don't need to worry. Like the rule set is the same for all ships. And I mean, the other thing with nav mode that came up was whether or not you can.
I do think there should be some type of training mode to separate an option in the main menu where you're just or handheld do how to play more depth than the current training in the PU. They could even have done this in Arena Commander, since Arena Commander is not like the PU and it has a little bit more fidelity to it. It's a little bit more stable. They could have been like, okay, before you go into the persistent universe, you need to go into Arena Commander to learn to do the flight tutorial in the Arena Commander. Instead of just going into Arena Commander free flight and then someone kills you like in 3 seconds because you have no idea what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my opinion on it. But this is what he's talking about right here with the non-combat ships. I think, once they go into their modes where they're doing whatever it is, like their salvage or whatever, they're going to be vulnerable. And with things such as, the new scanning for the Rambler coming online, we're going to be able to find you. We're going to be able to find you. And when we do, we're going to pull up and we're going to stop you from leaving. So it's not like players are going to have like this safe area to always be in. They're still going to be susceptible to be found when they're doing their trades. And that's something that's not being considered. I don't know exactly how this scanning step's going to work, but if it works how they say it's supposed to work when they did CitizenCon, then you'll basically be able to find anybody if you have the right equipment. And that's why I have a Rambler, so that we can go pirate people, so we can find targets.
Always escape a situation. So yes, if your navigation mode is completely spooked.
And most of the time, people are flying reclaimers with 1 or 2 people. Sometimes people are on them by themselves. So if you're flying a reclaimer by yourself and you're in the back just moving your boxes around, we scan the area and we see there's a reclaimer with X amount of storage on it and you're just back there moving your boxes, well, we're going to come find you, bro. And you're going to get got. So, what he's talking about here won't make, the Care Bear safe.
cooled and your quantum drive is ready, you can usually quite quickly escape whatever combat situation you're in, unless there's some specialized ships that snare you in some way or keep you there. But this is depend on a case-by-case basis. Also, Rich, you want to add to something? Maybe flight shooting
sure.
or so?
Yeah, so a big thing with Master Modes for us is it's not just about combat.
We're looking
we can
for
keep saying
you.
this, but it's not just about the combat ships. We have reworked every single ship in the game right now. And we've got a base archetype we use. So there's a difference between archetype and role for us. So archetype is something we use internally to start a baseline with a ship. But then as we move forward, we start to look at the role of ship and what that kind of individuality of each ship means. But yeah, every single ship, in the game is going to have a rework and feel different to what it has done.
Now, this is something that
there's been a big focus not just on
I
the
want to
combat
talk
side
about.
of things, but what makes a good cargo ship, and what makes a bad cargo ship, and to make sure that the overall balance between these ships is fair, for everyone, because we do realize that the players in our game, there is some people that love combat, but there is people that don't really want to do combat. So we've got to choose ships for an environment where it's fair for everyone playing the game, and that's been a big focus of ours. Because we don't want people that
or you can
don't
just
want to
join
do combat
us,
to
and we can take
feel
other
like
people's
combat
stuff.
is always
You
a
always
threat.
do that.
It's just always something in the game. There's always got to be something to kind of balance that out. And it's going to be there's going to be a big learning process. When it first goes out, there's a good chance we might not get it right. There's a good there's definitely a good chance we'll make some changes. And we'll definitely listen to the feedback. And we'll start making iterational changes on these. But our overall goal is that the game is fair for everyone. No matter what you come to Star Citizen for.
Yeah, I want to Nona Nelson is like, oh no, they avoided that most upvoted question. No, we just didn't start with it. We're one question in. Chill. You mentioned that archetypes are not the same as roles, and this was one of the bigger misunderstandings that came from.
It's a very big misunderstanding because you're saying that the Idris is a frigate, but also the Karis also a frigate. That doesn't make any sense. The Idris is like 3 times the size of a Carrack. How are they in the same archetype? I thought the Carrack was an exploration ship. I thought it was a cargo ship. You know what I'm saying? And this is the issue. It's like they come out and they change stuff, and the changes just it doesn't make sense. Now here's the thing about these archetypes, right? The archetypes are kind of in the wrong place. I strongly feel that every light fighter should be an interceptor, and the medium fighters should become light fighters. The reason being, now just hear me out, guys. Now you guys know this is a conversation, right? If we are, let's just say we're in a cruise ship, right? And let's just say I'm flying an Idris, right? And there's a target that we need to go chase down. And these are combative targets. Like, what ship would I send? Would I send a very fragile interceptor that can be shot down and killed very easily? Am I going to send a light fighter that has a little bit more of a chance to fight that target? You know what I mean? It just makes no sense to have like these interceptors. And I just think that ships like the Archimedes, these little snub fighters, like just make the snub fighter category like its own little special thing, right? But you can also make every single light fighter in the game an interceptor, because I would rather send like a Gladius, an Arrow, a Blade, something like that to go catch targets, because this is what we currently do in real life. If we're on an aircraft carrier, okay, we're gonna send fighter jets to go intercept things. Shocker, right? So if we can apply that logic to the game, we can say that, okay, well, it just makes more sense to have light fighters do light fighter things. And then you move or you have the light fighters do the interceptor things, and then you move medium fighters into the light fighter category. And then you just don't have heavy fighters. like everything just moves down into a different category. And for me, that's a better solution than having these basically snub fighters like like the P-52. I think it's P-52 that's in master modes. Yeah, as a interceptor, because it's fragile. Like, why would I want to use that to intercept anything? If someone shoots it with a missile, it's fucking done. Like, it doesn't make any sense. What I'm saying, to me, makes sense. Okay, so ships like the F7, the F8, these would be your medium fighters, and then the Hornet, not the Hornet, but the Hurricane and the Scorpius, the Vanguards. These will become like your medium fighter ships. And also because, has anybody flown the Vanguard in master modes? It is terrible. The turret doesn't have a very good firing arc. It's slow, unmaneuverable, and if you know how to stay out of the firing arc of the turret, the turret's not going to hit anything. It's just terrible. And it almost feels like you're going so slow. It almost feels like the heavy fighters are flying like just big tanks in space. That's what they feel like. They don't feel anything how they should feel. Like, I strongly feel that not light fighters, but like ships like the Hurricane, the Vanguard, the Scorpius, the F8, these types of ships, they should have a slightly higher top speed but slower acceleration than a light fighter, and less maneuverability. It's a good way to balance it, because you don't want your heavy fighters just to catch everything. No, you want your heavy fighters in a place that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is making them so slow and so unmaneuverable that you can't even get guns. Like, you can't even barely get guns on one of these targets. Even like the F7, it's hard to get guns on with the Vanguard because it's so slow. And it moves so terribly. And the turret has a terrible firing arc. Like, if you're looking nose down on the turret, on the nose of the ship, you can't see targets because the MFD stuff's in the way. That's how bad it is. So I don't know what they're trying to do with these ships in master modes, but right now it's not great. So I would suspect the next 9 months of Star Citizen is going to be absolutely brutal when it comes to the flight model. I can honestly foresee a lot of people quitting the game because of master modes. Will I quit the game because of master modes? Probably not. But man, it just makes the game less appealing in my opinion.
The episode there. Archetypes are are not about the overall purpose and intention of the ship. Archetypes are about a flight profile. It's building out a number of flight profiles as a starting point, as a first pass assumption on a vehicle before you go in and do individual specific tunings. So yes, the archetypes tend to be combat focused because that's where the whole, I don't want to say rock paper scissors, but the essence of balancing between the different fighter types is most important. We don't need a miner ship and a salvage ship to have individual flight characteristic archetypes. They will have their own individual tuning, so they won't handle exactly the same. But there doesn't need to be an entire archetype made for the way that all mining ships fly and turn. So there was a big
But isn't that the reason you're bringing control surfaces and like all these other things into the game as well? I don't know. Like, maybe I'm not understanding this, like what he's saying. Maybe I'm not getting it. But so let's just say this for instance, right? Let's just take two ships, the Hercules and the Constellation. Right? which I would assume they're going to be in the same type of archetype, right? So are you saying that the Constellation and the Hercules are going to have the same baseline profile? If that's the case, then you're essentially nerfing a ship. Like, I don't understand. Like, the A2 is going to get nerfed. If you're going to take its handling and its maneuverability away, which is supposed to be like a Crusader thing, right? Because Crusader ships are supposed to fly great in atmosphere with their big wings and their engines and a lot of thrust. They're supposed to be great flying ships. But if you're saying that you're taking these things away and you're going to this archetype system for a baseline, then you're removing what makes these ships feel like their own individual ships. And they're going to handle the same more or less out the gate, which is not compelling. So it sounds like to me is you guys need to work on this a little bit more, okay? And maybe get all these things tuned behind the scenes as much as you can before you stick it in the persistent universe. Because Arena Commander is a vacuum. It is not representative of all the decisions that you can make in the live server.
Misconception here, and I just want to make sure that we get this out, that archetypes and roles are synonymous. They are not. They are not. When we were referring to the Idris as this or that or whatever, those were for the flight archetypes. And yes, some of the names match and some of the names don't because, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I've been here 10 years. We're not always the greatest at naming things here.
Well, find somebody that can name things. You make $700 million in funding. You can surely hire somebody that can give things a proper name. It's not a great excuse. It just really isn't, bro.
But it's important to know that archetypes are not the roles. They're not the intended function of the ships. They are simply a starting point for the flight profile that Rich and his team and Yogi and all them then go to drill down and balance from. It's just a start here, then customize. That's all that is.
So the reason how that came together is practically based on our day-to-day work, right? So in general, the fighter gameplay is the most challenging one. So naturally, we're going for that first. But we could have also called a
I can make the names too. They can hire me. I could, if you guys need somebody to name things, I can name things.
Like that, right?
But
it's
call me.
It's not, but it's not as descriptive for us. So when we were focused on fighters, we just called it fighters. We're also calling something like light fighter bombers, which are not bombers. They just, for us internally, describe something. Just like as Jared said, like a flight profile. It does not mean that this describes the role.
Yeah, it's hard. What we struggle with this all the time. This is the thing that makes me look like this. I mean, come on, I look like this. I'm only 24 years old, people. This is what the job does. Is that
don't show, man?
Is that we share internal terminology externally, and that is not always super clear, and it's not always great for messaging. We'll just be real honest with it. Yes, it would be better. It would be better sometimes if we could take more time to figure out what the proper external version name of this is, whatever it would avoid something.
Listen, Jerry, it's already been 10 years, bro. It's already been 10 years. Like, it can't get worse, right? A lot of progress coming out this year. I don't think anybody would complain if we didn't get master modes for a couple of more months. No one would literally complain about that. No one's complaining that we need flight model changes right now. It's literally everything else that needs updating right now. Not the flight model. It's like literally like the last thing that you can put into the game. But I think they're so desperate to get this tested because of Squadron 42. Like, guys, listen to me. I'm predicting this here. You can clip this. They are going to announce Squadron 42 release date this year. This is why they are forcing master modes upon us at this time, because they're doing it this year. In Manchester, CitizenCon 2024, they are announcing the Squadron 42 release date. And this is why they need master modes tested. That way, if they can find anything wrong with it, they can fix it before it comes out. Like I said, I think Kenop said this. Canop said this, that we are essentially testing the Squadron 42 features before they come out. So if they can make any change, if they need to make any changes, they can go and do so. They'll have plenty of time to iron these things out, right?
It would avoid confusion in our parts, and we try. We genuinely try. Sometimes we don't succeed. In this one, we let internal terminology go external without saying what I just said here and whatnot. So that's on me. So apologize for the confusion, but hoping we clear that up now. And I'm hoping Nona Nelson knows why we did this question first before we go into the most voted question. Because this had what I thought was the most important information we need to get out there to people. Archetypes are not roles. So now, because Rich, you mentioned, or Yogi, you mentioned that nav mode is what helps players get away and stuff like this, and how we're going to combat that and stuff. The most voted on question was, can you explain in detail how quantum dampeners and quantum snares will work on ships in nav mode?
Thing of the episode, in my opinion.
Not yet. No.
Let me run because I was talking.
You mentioned that nav mode is what helps players get away and stuff like this, and how we're going to combat that and stuff. The most voted on question was, can you explain in detail how quantum dampeners and quantum snares will work on ships in nav mode?
Not yet. No.
Really, you can't explain it yet? Really?
Obviously, like quantum dampening and snaring, and in general keeping or trapping players within the SEM speed is something that makes or has a big impact on combat itself. But the thing is, we have not specifically implemented that part yet. It's on the to-do list for 3.2.3. Whether we're going to make it for 3.2.3 or not, we don't know yet, because there's a couple of things we still need to iron out. For example, do we simply say you cannot boost away? Do we need to take the size of the ship that wants to escape into account? Do we just change the spool timers? These are all just small details which we haven't tried out and internally tested yet. I mean, this also leads to the question that at 3.2.3 is like not the full experience for master modes, right? It's just the first step. There will be stuff missing. The ships will not be.
Guys, I'm getting so sick of this. I'm getting so sick. Like, can you just put a feature out that's complete, please? Like, I don't want any more features that are like, okay, this is the first iteration of this feature, and then we're gonna do this. No, if master mode is not complete, don't put it out. Period. If we don't have control surfaces, if we don't have every little detail of master modes ready, leave it in the oven. I don't want any pre-cooked food, bro. Leave it in the oven. Like, this is getting annoying. I'm so sick of this. Like, if you can't, you're basically saying that piracy is not going to exist in 3.23 because you can't figure out how to do the quantum interdicting, quantum snare stuff. Essentially what you're saying. Which is a big game loop for a lot of people. It's crazy. If it's not ready, don't put it out. No one's going to complain about that. My big thing is like, give it to me when it's ready. Pause. But give it to me when it's ready. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't tell me like, oh, well, we're going to give you master modes, but your gameplay style is going to be ruined because we don't know how we're going to do this quantum snare and dampening stuff just yet. Isn't this stuff supposed to be coming out with like in the next 6 weeks? Like, at least in the PTU in the next 6 weeks? And you're telling me like this stuff is not ready? Aren't you getting ready to release a ship into the game that its primary function is to use a QED? Like, what are you saying? So, again, you're putting things out that are not complete, that are broken, and you just expect us to be like, okay, well, just test this anyway. It's like, no, give us something that's actually complete, a complete feature. Like why do we have to settle for this slow IV drip when it comes to features? Like, just wait until it's complete. Wait until you have control surfaces all done for all the ships, and give us a complete master modes. Like why are we continuing to do this? This makes zero sense. If it's not ready, it's not ready.
Be as varied as we would like them to have later. So this will be like, we will build on that work, but exactly if quantum dampening and etc. will be there on day one when master mode releases, I do not know yet. It depends how well the normal work progress continues in the next few weeks. We'll see.
Yeah. Let's remember that there's a reason.
Yeah, Care Bears rejoice. Care Bears rejoice. Like, listen, Care Bears, all the Care Bears. Eve, I'm not calling you a Care Bear, by the way, but I'm just saying, Care Bears rejoice. Okay, because you guys are going to be so safe in 323. There's going to be no piracy. It's going to be the piracy-free patch. Okay, you guys are going to be so safe. Nobody's going to be able to catch you. You're just going to be able to go into nav mode and just get away. But don't worry, because I got a plan for that. Because if we can't make money being pirates, you can't make money being a trader. And we're going to make sure that it's miserable for you, just like it is for us. You bet your bottom dollar on that. Your bottom alpha AUEC on that one.
I've been referring to the first half of 2024 when I talk about when these features are arriving.
But the quantum snare doesn't keep ships from reaching their max speed in space or atmo now, so what's the difference? I think they're trying to change it because the whole point, I think, of like master mode in this entire thing is like if you're in nav mode and I'm in SCM, you're still gonna have a higher top speed, so you can get out of that interdiction bubble, right? You can just continue just to fly away. What they're trying to do is make it to where if you're interdicted, that you can't get into your higher speeds. They're trying to make you go slower, which again, for me, doesn't make sense. Just doesn't make sense. So they're still trying to balance this system out, which they're going to explain this here in a second. So I'm going to let them explain it. Then we're going to get back into it.
The normal, folks haven't figured. Some folks have figured it out. Some folks have. The normal quarterly release cadence doesn't really apply to a patch that's this big and whatnot. 323 has enough content in it that would have covered 3 normal quarterly patches. So since December and the first conversations of this post-SysMcon, I've been very specific about speaking about the first half of 2023. We don't have a date to give you, but for those, I already see folks in chat like, "Oh, this comes out next week," and they don't have it figured out. No, it doesn't come out next week. Still being worked on.
I said 6 weeks.
When we have an update, I'm sure we'll share it with you. All right, but now you know why we didn't start with that question. With the new nav mode, with the way nav mode has been described, will we be able to stay in it and travel everywhere avoiding combat? What are the planned limitations of nav mode?
So you will be able to always stay in nav mode. Whether it's suitable for you to do that is a different question. You will just not be able to access certain operator modes from nav mode. So things like scanning, for example, you can, but the guns operator mode, the missile operator mode, mining and salvaging will not be available in.
I would imagine that when hitting the snare, you would still be able to switch to nav. Like, we don't know like how this is gonna work because they haven't figured it out yet. But what I just said was what people have been saying, right? They haven't given an official stance on how the snares, the QED, all this stuff is going to work just yet. They haven't said it. And once we get to the end of this, I'm going to make a very good point of why this SCM and nav mode thing is stupid.
Nav mode. So you can just go around, but this also means like your shields are not effective, which means if you are, unless you're currently quantum traveling, you're still vulnerable to attacks. So, but when you're spooled and you are under attack, you still have the option to, I mean, not for now, but later when the new quantum travel experience comes online and you have quantum boost, you can actually get out of this thing very fast. But still, there's no clear no to this to the question whether or not you're invulnerable to combat. You're not. If you're flying around in normal space, you can be attacked one way or another.
So before we move on, let's just point this out real quick, chat. And you guys tell me if I'm crazy. If you go to Pyro and you're flying around in nav mode, just trying to get around, and you get hit with a solar flare, and your ship goes down, and you crash and you die, and then you have to start that entire process over again, and now your only option is to travel around Pyro in SCM mode. Because you know that Pyro doesn't have a whole lot of quantum markers. There just isn't. So imagine you have to go from one side of the planet to the other in SCM mode, because otherwise you're gonna be hit by solar flares and your ship's gonna get effed by that flare, unless you're on the dark side of the planet. So they're making living in Pyro a little bit more difficult, more than what it needs to be. This is why this stuff just doesn't make sense. Now, am I crazy? I could be. It's a likely possibility that I'm the crazy one for thinking about this.
Poke in here. Still Tomo 2. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Going back to the previous question, he goes, you'd think quantum interdiction stuff would be architected before all these master mode changes.
You would think.
Lamau, he says. Why is the quantum interdiction stuff, why is this a secondary consideration to all the other breadth of work being done on master modes?
I think this has more to do with the realities of how games are developed. Things like quantum interdiction speaks very strongly to the quantum travel experience. And when we created master modes, we did this roughly in parallel with a new quantum travel experience for Squadron. The thing is that although these things work together, we're bringing them separately back to the PU. Quantum dampening is not a thing that is of a big importance in Squadron. So that feature.
You see that, guys? You guys see what I'm saying? He just admitted, in some kind of way, that everything that's being developed was for Squadron. They didn't develop any of this flight model for the live environment. It was developed for Squadron 42. This wasn't done to help you and I in the live environment have an easier time flying or to learn a flight model. It was developed for Squadron. They didn't have the live environment in mind. It was an afterthought. Okay? Pay attention.
When in combination with master modes was just not ready. But the thing is, if we don't move tech that's ready over early, then we're dragging a lot of like legacy with us all the time. So this basically for master modes, or let's say for IFCS, that means that large parts of the codes is there doubled there, because we know which parts we can throw away when master mode is active, and we know which parts we can keep. But if we keep too much legacy stuff around for a long time, it just increases the maintenance effort a lot. So and also the game is not finished. So these things, they just happen. It's like engineering and game design is hard. It's really, really hard.
But that's a wonderful answer, Yogi, that our friend Still Tomo has reduced to QD not important, which is not at all what Yogi said. What Yogi said is there aren't other players using QD in Squadron 42, and we're moving a Squadron 42 feature over to the PU. So it wasn't in the original Master Modes mandate because it was.
Why wasn't it? If you know this exists in the live environment, you didn't think like, oh, we're making more ships that do this. You make the Antares. You're making the Zeus. You have the Mantis, and you have the Cuddy Blue. And like, no, I don't think the Warlock. I think the Warlock's just an EMP, right? The Warlock's just an EMP, right? Somebody correct me on that. But still, you've made 2 ships since you developed Squadron 42 that have these QED features on them. And you think You didn't think that, oh, we should probably like make sure this works in Squadron so that when we bring it over to the PU, it's not an issue? Like there was no foresight in that. Nobody had a conversation. Nobody picked up the phone and be like, hey, we're designing this ship, and I noticed that there is none of this type of stuff in Squadron. So don't you think we should at least like, I don't know, test it in there first to make sure that it works in master modes in Squadron, so that if we port stuff with the PU, it doesn't create more work for us? Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Wasn't necessary in Quadrant 42. Now it will be considered and now it will be addressed in the PU, is what he said. He did not say it wasn't important. That's you.
Also,
It could have already been
it's
addressed
also
though.
important it's also important to consider that, you know, our team is part of these conversations pretty early on, and we call out this stuff really early, and it could be developed in a way that let's focus on master mode and then figure this stuff out later. But we mentioned these things early. We mentioned how do you tackle a ship? How does the Mantis work in this context? Yes. And Yogi and Rich are already thinking about that ahead of time. Even if they're not necessarily solving those problems right away, they're like, how does this fit into the overall picture anyway? Mm-hmm. And so we already consider those things, and we call those out extremely early in the process so that they are part of the overall design, even if we don't get to them right away.
I'm sure that you do.
And now that
it doesn't seem like it anyway.
We're just proving that we're live. I mean, it says it's live in the corner right now. But folks, I didn't say there was no QED in Squadron 42. I said there were no other players. There's no PvP QED. I mean, you can imagine a world where things might work differently in single player than it would in a multiplayer universe with PvP implications. That's what we're referring to.
Shouldn't it work the same if we just let's take the snare out of it, because the snare is like you're pulling people out of quantum, right? Probably, but you still could do that in Squadron if there was a mission for it. You know what I'm saying? If you made a mission in Squadron, like, hey, we're gonna do this thing, and we're gonna try to pull these pirates out of whatever, and we're gonna use these features, right? It could have been done. It just wasn't done, right? I just feel like sometimes there's a lack of imagination over there at Cloud Imperium games. Sometimes.
In camera, I would stare for a while. Just imagine the cameras zooming in because I'm staring at you because you know better. All right. How do master modes, especially the nav mode, work in atmosphere? We haven't talked about it. Is there any reasonable change to how they work in atmosphere?
Nope. So it's going to fly the same as it does currently. So if you take a ship in nav mode into atmosphere, you're going to suffer the same drag, consequences of that. And then if you switch to SEM, you can be limited to those speeds.
Okay. Pretty simple. This was a big one. I've been wondering this one. Are there any plans for the SEM and nav mode transition times to differ between ships? For example, through engineering optimization, either ship role or even component archetype or tuning. Will it be the same for every ships or different? Talk to me about this.
No, they're definitely different. So
and I tend to exploit
the swap
this.
time is defined by two things. One is a value which we currently set per ship. The other one is defined by the quantum drive that you're using, because the quantum drive, when you go into nav mode, the quantum drive spools up, and this is the thing that unlocks the high speeds. Specifically, like I don't want to talk about engineering gameplay because another team is handling that, but it is a value that can potentially be changed by, I don't know, tweaking your quantum drive. As I said, I don't want to talk specifically about this because this is not my area. But in the initial master mode.
Another question that I asked, and I asked this question on the Spectrum forum, was when you're switching from nav into SCM, you can pull like over ADGs. Let me see if I have the video. Pull the video up real quick. Try to show you guys. I have a video of me doing this. Hold on 1 second. video. Is it this one? No, it's not that one. Where is that Master Modes video? Oh, I should have pulled it up before I started this. Oh my goodness, I can't find it. Anyway,
At least for 323, the ships
you
will
can
have
pull
different
insane G's going into master
values in
modes.
terms of spool times, specifically between like
What's going on, Benj?
fighters or interceptors. Interceptors, for example, they spool just faster because we want them to be fast and to actually work as interceptors when they need to. So yeah, so the difference, there will definitely be different times. And specifically, the larger the ship, usually the longer the time becomes to spool. To swap the modes.
Yeah, unless we create something hyper specialized, you know, like a ship that's designed for that kind of switch, like this. What was it? Drift Bosa says, so pretty much they want to make this game single player. Drift Bosa, nobody else, nobody else, everybody else earmuffs. I'm talking just to Drift Bosa. Yes, that's actually secretly what I'm actually saying. You should go to Reddit. Go to Reddit and say I said that. Just you. You're the only one who knows. I'm telling you. Okay. Why is there no UI and HUD update coming with the Master Mode update in 323?
That is not true. But okay, it's a little bit true. So in general, the new MFDs and so on, and the new ship layouts and so on, which you've seen in the CitizenCon presentation, they won't be in 323. What will come to 323, however, is the visor-based update, which meaning all gunnery improvements, target brackets, like all the 3D thing that is projected to whatever it needs to be projected to.
Mr. E says, I love SC, but it's easily going to take 10 more years to finish where they can only work on one thing at a time and continuously have to rework everything behind each new update. Yeah, it's kind of the issue. And my biggest thing is, like, if they would have just changed the way that ships backstrafed, you know, that would have solved some of the issue. Now, I do understand that you can go forward, especially when you're decoupled, and essentially flip your ship around, and now you're going that exact same speed backwards or in the opposite direction, because there is no real backwards and forwards in space. All directions are relative, right? But you can essentially, like, just flip your ship around, and now it's going that way. But they can, it's a game. Like, you can make it to where, like, if they detect that type of movement in the ship, that it just slows the ship down. Like, they could just do that. And that would solve a lot of the combat issues of what they call the backstrafing and the jousting and all that stuff. It would essentially solve it, because you wouldn't be able to do it. Like I said, like, are we trying to make a realistic flight model, or are we just trying to play make-believe? I feel like they go back and forth between the two. And I think tricording should exist still, especially in a zero-G environment. I don't think you should be able to tricord in atmosphere, because with control servers and things like that coming online, even with the additional thrust, you still have to overcome the limits of the ship in atmosphere, which, if there's going to be wind like they say, then you're not always going to be able to do that based on wind conditions and things like that. So I think you should be able to do it in space, but not to do it in atmo. I think in atmosphere, the fighter planes should fly more like airplanes, and then in zero-G, they should fly more like a spaceship would. You know, like, just do it like that. Easy. Easier said than done, but still easy in my opinion.
So at this appropriate distances, that stuff will make it in. This also means, like, we're removing all these old 2D based sprites that you have on the aiming UI. So there's a partial UI update for it.
Yep, that would stop backwards corkscrew, which would solve a lot of backstrafing. Yes, I wish we would keep the tricord too. I just learned how to tricord, like, to actually do it like the right way. Like, it took me time and patience and all these things to learn how to do that maneuver, and I feel good learning that, right? And now that they're taking that away, it's kind of like, well, what do I do now? Like, every fight that you get into, like, especially like a 1v1, It's like, unless you're like in a different ship, but if you're both in light fighters, they're just mirror matches, and it's not fun. Like, I like watching the high skilled pilots flying this game, because the things that they can do to get onto your to get to an advantageous position is absolutely incredible, right? And it should be that super high skill ceiling. I'm all for that. I don't want that to go anywhere. And I'm saying this as a person that's not at the peak of PvP. I'm not. I'm at the bottom still. But I understand that there is a place for that in the game. And if people want, because if you're essentially saying that you can choose your life in Star Citizen, but you're gonna say that, you want to be a top tier pilot, but then you're gonna remove the ceiling from being a top tier pilot where everybody's kind of the same. This was like, well, then what's the point of playing? There is no point. If I can't be the best, then why play? And that's the mindset some people have, right? But again, Squadron 42 is a game that's being built to be sold to the masses, right? This is not like, I feel like right now, like Star Citizen's kind of like our little secret, because we know the potential of what this project could be. It's like our little secret. Like, if you know, then you know, right? But when it becomes to the masses, it's going to become one of those things where the flight model is going to be so simple where anybody can kill anybody. And like I said, with a 2.4 kilometer bullet spread, like, and then you can zoom in on top of that. Like, that's not skill. That looks like that stupid goofy ass shit from Starfield, where you're zooming in, hitting components. Like, the fuck? Yeah, I remember learning it and spending time practicing as well. Let's try court counter to stray faster out of other movements also. I think it's funny when they get to the part where we only perceive speed based on our surrounding and how fast it goes by, ignoring that responsiveness is a key aspect of speed. Another key aspect of speed is acceleration and deceleration, because we actually don't feel speed, right? Speed's the consequences of the forces of acceleration and deceleration of how you feel that, right? The problem is with master modes currently is you can hit your boost and be at your cap limit like that. It's literally like going from 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. It's like going in a Tesla Plaid 0 to 60. You're already at your limit. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. And then, like, I've said this too, like, the amount of how you can move forward in master modes is not in sync with how you can move in the other directions, the other 4 directions. Because it feels like you can still have some of that legacy strafe movement, but your forward movement and your backwards movement has been limited. It's like, well, this doesn't feel balanced. It feels like I can turn faster than I can go forward. But even if I can still roll and do all these other things faster, I still can't get away from shots because the spread is so far now. So even if you did want to drop chaff and try to get away, they can still saturate the area. If they know how to aim, they can still saturate the area and still hit you. Like, it's not that difficult.
And it should be noted that it's, I mean, as you'll see with other things, it's impossible to work on everything, all things at all times. And many members of the UI team have very important
content
work
creator
with the
board meta,
Glass, the
right?
star map, the internal maps, all the work that's coming into 323. So it stands to reason that there are some things that are going to have to be delayed and come later. One of the things that we talked about in the show, and Mike and Brent, this is one of the
Horizon, hey, I'll totally agree. It's going to be who has the most ships wins, or now who does the most DPS at once. Yeah. So essentially what's going to happen is the way that these group battles are not going to work, it's not going to be as skill based. It's like, everybody go for this one target. Everybody, go for this target and go for this target. Like, that's how like these battles are going to take place now. And it's not going to be who has the most of this or the most of that. You know what I mean? And we know that you know, in Arena Commander, missiles, you can flare them. Hell, even chaff will break a missile lock in Arena Commander, but this doesn't work in the live environment. So when we get into the live environment, this is when we're really going to get to see master modes for what it really is. And this is why I'm not sold on it yet. Like, if I get into the live environment and we're going slower, and I still can't chaff an EM missile because of whatever reason, then, like, what the hell is the point? You want me to go slower and manually try to dodge missiles? Like, what the fuck is that? Doesn't make any goddamn sense. Go slower to dodge a missile that's moving 3 times my speed. Yeah, right. And we know these missiles are like Hollywood missiles. They turn and they do all kinds of crazy shit.
Those ones I expect to hear from you quite on is the struggles with master modes in 1v1. So let's talk about that for a bit. What are the struggles with that master mode? Because we've all seen it internally. Even I've seen it internally in these giant fur balls of like squadron battle. Master modes is fantastic.
No,
it
it's
keeps
not.
the screen full of other ships and stuff, and you really feel like you're in this huge
No,
epic
it's not.
space
It's
battle.
not great.
But
It sucks, Jared.
that isn't translating as well as we'd like for one-on-one. So talk to me. What is the issue, and then what are we thinking about pursuing as far as a solution?
I'll talk a
There's
little
definitely
bit
a lot.
about.
Go ahead.
I'll let Brent go ahead, actually.
No. I was just gonna say there's definitely a lot there. It can even just be on balancing, whether it be the tuning of the ship, how it handles, or just even health pools, or even like the weapon gunnery changes that are coming. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that can contribute to
You said a
why
whole lot of
1v1s
nothing.
sometimes don't feel the best, but the fur ball or the
A whole lot
squadron
of nothing.
battle feels really good too. Bayor, I think you have more on that too, of like
I'll
why the
mention a couple
1v1s.
of I'll mention a couple of key observations that I think players are having with it. Because we limited the velocity space with master modes, you're seeing people get this locked-in feeling where they're hitting these max speeds and they can't go beyond that, and their opponent is hitting the max speeds, and you get kind of stuck in a position where you can't get an advantage over them. That's that
Exactly.
locked-in feeling caused by the velocity space itself. In addition to, a lot of 1v1s are mirror matches, what we call mirror matches, where you're facing the same ship. So the most common is going to be Gladius versus Gladius, right? And when you're facing the same ship, you have the exact same performance characteristics, so you can counterbalance one another pretty easily, and you end up with a head-on situation quite often. And this is something we're observing a lot of when players are talking about it, and we're advising Yogi, advising Rich that this is something that we're seeing. Players are talking about it a lot. And as for solutions, I'll kind of let Yogi and Rich talk about that a bit more, but that's the information we're passing on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry,
No,
you
No,
go.
No, right, okay. Yeah, so we do a lot of iterative testing here on the vehicle team. So we're constantly
Got a cat in
testing
his
new
lap.
things, and Mike and his team do a really good job of providing the feedback, and then we discuss that feedback, but then we action that feedback in testing, and we try and find out what causes it. And it's never just like, oh, just move this thing here, or just move this thing here. It's always like a really complicated combination of things that that are quite difficult to get sometimes, and also difficult to
It's not complicated if you
basically
increase
implement
the
in the
speed.
game, because we've got very complex mathematics behind a lot of the systems in the game. So is it just a case of just tweaking one number here and there? We've got to really break down and really understand the problem and what's causing it. Right, I said we do a lot of,
It's very simple. The speeds are too slow. It's just like, let's just take okay, so like I do kickboxing and stuff, right? Now you can have a fight with somebody in which they're the exact same size, you have the exact same reach, so it becomes a quote unquote mirror match, right? So let's just say all things are equal in a fight, right? My thing that I want you to do when you're trying to punch me is to overcommit to your shot, right? With master modes, I can't force you to overcommit, meaning you not being disciplined with your boost or anything like that, right? Because I can essentially just always keep you in front of me, like no matter what. Unless somebody else comes in the fight, then it's not a 1v1 anymore. But I can always just keep you in front of me. The thing about the current flight model, which is great, is you can tell when someone's going to overcommit as they're coming in, and that's where we get these fantastic merges, right? And that punishes people for being not disciplined in their flight or not disciplined in their control of their ship. But with master modes, you're taking those fundamentals away. You know, like you kind of want people to overcommit so you can get on their 6. Isn't that what they said in like they wanted like a World War II style dogfight where you have to do like the loop to get on someone's 6? Well, we're not doing that. What's happening is people are staying in front of each other going in circles. That's not a World War II style dogfight. That's just not. You know, that's not punishing somebody for not being a disciplined pilot or not knowing how to fly or not being skilled enough at combat. It just doesn't. It doesn't reward the better pilot in any case. Because I've killed pilots that I'm not better than in master modes who I would stand a chance against in the legacy flight model that we have currently. I guess I just opened my ear, but kind of holding my tongue until we get in not an AC only. It's coming, so we can only just keep it to help make it better after it gets here. I agree with that, Mason. That's why I said I said earlier. I don't know how long you've been watching, but I said that pretty much like I'm not gonna make any judgments on master modes until I play it in the PU, because some of the things and that work in Arena Commander don't work in the live servers. Like in the live servers, we all know that EM missiles you can't flare them off, even if you pre-flare. Most of the time, they're still gonna hit you. If that's still an issue, that's not gonna make master modes great. It's gonna make it worse. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we have to consider about the live servers that's not in Arena Commander. I've always said that Arena Commander is a vacuum and it's not a real representation of what gameplay is like in the PU. It just isn't. It's an okay platform to test things in here and there, but it's not the PU. So I want to play master modes in the PU when we can make any decision that we want to make. Yeah, but that's why I went back and explained, my thought process of what I've already said in this video. Well, that's true. We'll never be able to match a World War II dogfights with 6 degrees of freedom. But that's what they said. That's not what I'm saying. That's what they said. Acceleration is key. I feel like it's being ignored. Being able to change direction quickly has a lot more impact on speed than we realize. That's true. That's true. World War II planes flew slower than current fighters, but the common denominator is key. They fly like planes. SC doesn't have control surfaces yet. It doesn't. And that's also a thing in which I'm saying is like, why are we putting master modes in without control surfaces? Because ships that fly bad in Atmo are still going to have poor performance in Atmo. Going slower isn't necessarily going to fix that. I would like to see master modes and at least control surfaces come out together. That way it's you at least have somewhat of a more realistic flight model, because these ships are still going to be depending on their thrusters and atmosphere. And then once the control surfaces come out, then the flight models are going to change yet again, right? So like, why can't we get like these things all at once? This is what I've been saying. Like, stop giving us like this little bit of a feature. You know what I'm saying? Give us the whole thing. Pause. But give us when it's ready, give us the whole thing. I'm still kind of baffled by the quantum snare and the QD stuff. I get that quantum snare and quantity is a Squadron 42 thing, but it kind of dodged a very important question on those ships. They did. And I called them out for it, Mesa. I said it was a bunch of BS. Because here's my point, Mesa. I'm gonna go back to this. We're gonna circle back so we can get Mesa up to speed on my thought process. You made 2 ships, right? Since Squadron 42 has been developed, right? Well, you've made a bunch of ships since the game's been developed, right? But You've made 2 ships, one still in concept, but you've made 2 ships since then. And nobody made a phone call to any other department and say, hey, maybe we should think about how these ships would probably work in Squadron. Maybe we can add some type of side mission, a side quest where we pull pirates out of Quantum. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no side quests, there's no side missions to do these type of different things to go mess with pirates. Like, really? And then if he would have done that, then there would have been no need to kind of think about how this stuff is going to work in the live server, because you've already figured it out in Squadron 42. And this is why I said that the reason we're getting master modes is because they want to sell Squadron 42 and not because we need a new flight model. They're kind of telling you but not telling you. You kind of have to read between the lines, and I am inferring a lot of information here, guys. I am making a lot of inference here, but this is how I'm interpreting information, because I understand that they want to sell this game to a wide range of people, just not us. Okay, they want to sell to a wide range of people, and those other people happen to be on consoles. Now I got you, Mason. I got you up to speed, man. Oh yeah, I gotta thank Mason for this little button right here. You know, we all need to give Mason some 07s for this. He sent me this file that we have here.
Who wants some noodles? Who wants some noodles?
Right, Squadron 42 is feature complete. Right, but here's the thing about that, right? The reason why they want to test master modes right now is because I'm predicting that later this year they're going to announce a Squadron 42 release date, right? So they want us to test master modes for Squadron 42. That's essentially what we're doing. We're testing master modes for them, so that if there's any weirdness with that flight model, they can just go back and they can iron those things out in Squadron 42 without having to wait for a beta.
A lot of play testing, we get a lot of feedback internally, but we also do a lot of real spectrum in the forums and everywhere else to get a lot of feedback to understand, the way and why the combat is the way it is.
Yeah, it is extremely hard to like the feedback from master modes was very, very diverse. Like I mean, just the comments on the YouTube video that we had last time was very diverse. And then, I mean, we're also like monitoring Discords and so on. And like what
Yes,
I
it
usually
does.
do is I listen to the worries that the players have, but I let Bayer and Brand actually and come up with actual proposal, because for me it's very hard to filter through what's actually actionable feedback. But in terms of like what we're trying, so we absolutely agree that the 1v1s, they're a little bit meh at the moment, but this is this has to do exactly with the problem of the velocities, right? We want to not go into high velocities, because it just
Why not?
because going into high velocities just causes one thing, and this is dragging out the fights more.
Why not?
The only class that really benefited from high velocities were light fighters, and in the legacy systems there were not a lot of space for like light and medium fighters. For medium and heavy fighters. So in terms of like what we're trying to make this more,
hey, y'all can ignore that message from Streamlabs, man. Like, I ain't gotta send me money, bro. It's all good. You know what I'm saying? We over here having a conversation. That's just, you ain't gotta do that.
more interesting in 1v1s is like we're trying to break up that specific pattern where you have two ships circling each other and then they're feeling locked in. Like one of the tries that we did was actually adding more dynamic rotational speeds, so that when you hold boost, your boost pool needs to spool up first before it is expanded, and then it actually not just gives you higher accelerations, it also gives you higher rotation rates and so on. That did a little bit, but not enough yet. We do hope that with other things like
forward velocity, Yogi.
more
That's it.
like smoothing accelerations out a little bit more, so you don't get like a super strong initial kick, but rather like ramp them up. That this will create enough like diversity in the maneuvering, so that we're so that we're getting like in a better place with the 1v1s again. That said, 6 degrees of freedom is very hard to balance. Like Michael talked about the feeling of locked in. Another worry that always comes up is like the feeling of backstrafing, right? So the backstrafing feeling itself is just mathematically hard to endure, because you need to have an insane amount of acceleration to actually overcome a target that is accelerating backwards on you just to get around by this, right? That's really, really complicated. So
it's not complicated if you just simply program the game in a way to where if a ship is moving in that direction, that it simply just starts to slow down on its own, and you can make whatever excuse for that you want. It's your game. Like, it's imaginary. Like, if you want to remove backstrafing, you could. Okay, you could. It wouldn't be a difficult thing to do, and the only ships that would be able to beat backstrafe are ships that could move their main thrusters in that direction. You know what I'm saying? You can make like an auto couple feature. As much as players wouldn't like it, I'd rather have a feature where if my ship is moving in that direction, that it starts to automatically slow itself down. You know, backstrafing is not a huge issue if you're coupled. It's a big issue if you're decoupled. So figure it out. Like there are ways to figure this out. Immersion. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are ways they can do this. And I've always said that the light fighters should fly like planes in atmosphere. Like, they shouldn't exactly have 6 degrees of freedom in atmosphere. And I think control services are going to do a good job of that, right? So you're going to get kind of more of that fighter plane type of gameplay in atmosphere. The real issue what they're having is with 0G fights, because they can spread out. But I'm just like, well, space is big, and you're moving. You know, if what doesn't make sense to me is they want to keep things close together, but I can shoot you from further away and zoom in on you from further away. Like, I don't get this system. Like, these are things to me that contradict. Like, I feel like light fighters should have a weapon range between 1,000 and 1,200 meters, and that's it. And if you want to fight somebody, you have to get close to them. That would fix a lot, in my opinion.
we're thinking about trying things out like X-shaped velocity spaces, so that you can, for example, not fly as fast backwards as you can fly forwards. But what this exactly does with the dynamics is insanely hard to predict, like even internally, because even when we're playing internally, it doesn't, like, it produces some results, and sometimes we think, oh yeah, this might work or so, but the actual test is only when we're playing with actual players and actually letting them play for a while.
They could have done this X-shaped thing with the live flight model. Like, they could have came out when they said, okay, we're going to do master modes, but until we get master modes, we want to change the flight model to like this egg-shaped acceleration space, just to see how this works in a live environment. They could have done this, right? But they didn't. They just let the legacy flight model just continue on how it is.
For a couple of days or weeks, so we can actually see if like the new changes are creating some dominant strategies that then can be not countered or something like that.
Yeah, you make a good point. Testing on this is not something that can happen in a single afternoon. This is a thing, even within the experimental modes that are available in Arena Commander, those can only show us master modes working in a select and very limited number of environments and situations. It's when it gets into the PU, when 323 comes out, this is the next phase of testing. And this is the next phase of information gathering. This is the next phase of attempting solutions with 323X or whatever comes after that. And it's just important. I want to make sure that folks understand.
Don't forget our hover mode for that very short minute. Exactly. I know it sounds dumb, but I'm imagining a triangle-shaped combat model. I mean, triangle shape could work too. I mean, that could work.
Dan, that master modes is no different than any other feature we've developed for Star Citizen over our long history. We'll put it in, we'll test it, we'll test it, we'll test it, we'll test it, we'll tweak it, we'll test that, we'll tweak that, we'll test that, and and it'll either get to a point where we're happy with it, or it'll get to a point where we need to make changes to it. But this isn't. I want to caution against a lot of the doom and gloom. And the next question I have from the chat is actually from Toastminster45. Hi, Toastminster45. He asks,
I really feel like they're really trying to sell us on this. And I think the player base has already kind of made their minds of like where they're going to be at. My mind is going to be made up when I can get my hands on it in a live server. I'm kind of done with testing this in Arena Commander. There's only so much, because if they're not going to make the changes that we want to see in Arena Commander, then we might as well wait until we get into the live server, so we can have all the ships, and we can see how it's going to work in the live environment. That's pretty much what I'm waiting for, and I'm honestly looking forward to the PTU testing for master modes. I really am, and I want to see how players are going to exploit this system. Now, one of the things I haven't talked about yet is switching from nav to SCM. You can pull insane Gs without blacking out. But with master modes, if you're doing any type of combat, if you start rolling and all this stuff, you black out very, very easily. Like I said, I pulled like 80 to 90 Gs decelerating and going from nav to SCM without blacking out. It's crazy. And that's something that needs to be fixed. That's something that people need to be punished for, because if you think that players are already using this method in Arena Commander to merge on the people, it's like an auto merge button. You just fly in and you can still target people when you're in nav mode. You can still select targets. So you can target somebody and you go into nav from nav to SCM, and now you've auto merged onto them, the perfect merge. Because you don't have to get all the way into SCM to start shooting your weapons. The moment you press that button, you can start shooting your weapons. You don't have to wait for the bar to load. That's just your shield loading. But you can engage combat the moment you press that button.
how do the devs feel about all the discourse surrounding master modes on Spectrum, YouTube, etc., in the PvP community? Does the doom and gloom from a certain selection of them bring you down? How do you?
I'm curious about ships like the SRV and the Fury LX that doesn't have weapons. Do we get extra shield power? That's a very good question. I hadn't even thought of that. The ships that don't have weapons on them. Yikes. It's a good question.
How do you fight against this?
It doesn't really bring us down. It's more, we see it as a challenge, really, to kind of look at it, because we take everyone's opinion on board, and it's up to our job, and working with the other teams to kind of analyze the feedback, and it's fine that players react in a certain way, if they don't like it when they first play it, but we've also seen people that didn't like it, and now they like it. So it's important to be balanced with the general view on the feedback. There's definitely some people that don't like it, but there's definitely some people that do. So it's about balance, and I don't have the kind of feedback personally, and that's a really important thing. Is it's not personal. It's about the feature itself, and it's up to us to make that feature as good as possible. So it kind of motivates me personally.
And I'm also curious about the ships that don't have quantum drives, because there's a couple of ships, like the P-52 and a couple like the Fury doesn't have a quantum drive. So is that ship gonna only have an SCM mode? Like, how does the Fury work when it comes to master modes? Because it only has one mode. It has no quantum drive. You know what I'm saying? So how is that ship gonna work? Like, forget not having weapons. It doesn't have a quantum drive on it. So how does the Fury gonna? Are they gonna be locked into one mode? It's crazy. Hover quads too. How are hover quads gonna work? Because they don't have quantum drives either. Are they gonna be locked into one mode? Oh, I'm drifting away from my camera. I'm getting blurry over here. Are they only gonna have one mode too? So many unanswered questions.
In a way, I'm not sure how the other members of the team feel,
but they said earlier that the quantum drive is what determines your nav mode, right? Isn't that what they said? Like you need a quantum drive for nav mode.
that's the way I feel about it.
Classic Force Ghost response, Rich.
I definitely know that I see a lot of the feedback, whether it be negative or positive, and it's definitely helpful when we get the constructive feedback. When people
You only
give
want
us
positive
more,
feedback.
like,
You don't
hey,
like
you know,
you
have
don't
you
like
guys thought about?
you don't want anybody telling you that you're full of crap. Okay, I'm not friends with CIG. You know what I'm saying? I do enjoy this game. I do enjoy the project. I do want them to be successful in what they're doing, right? But as the backers, as the people that have funded this project, I feel like we should have a say in like what the hell's happening around here. You know what I'm saying? Like we funded the project. Without us, the project wouldn't exist. If we weren't out here buying these ships and doing all this stuff, this project wouldn't exist. So they should be listening to us. Yeah, they said that the quantum drive is what determines and unlocks the higher speed. That's a mistake. It is.
About this, and it gives us a lot to think on versus just, oh, this is awful. So definitely keep that coming. Definitely keep all the good constructive stuff coming.
Yeah.
I do say though that like actually, I mean ultimately we need to decide what we're going to do with the game. So just like even if you think that somebody else said what you think, it's always important. And sorry, I'm talking to our player base here, right? Please always put your feedback in. Write what you have, what you feel. Like the feel is super important for us, right? Because you can argue about like speeds or whatever, right? But you can, but if you forget what the feeling is, or to describe what your feeling is, then often it's for me harder to understand what's actually going on.
We are describing what we're feeling. If I read in your comment that it's trash, that's how I feel. Okay? I feel like this system is trash. That's how I feel. I don't need to give you anything else beyond that. It's trash. Now, if you want me to go beyond that, I will. But I don't have to. Nobody has to. Just like you don't have to explain things to us, we don't have to necessarily explain things to you. You know what I'm saying? But if you want to go with what you said and try to build a flight model together, listen to what I'm saying. Okay? These speeds are too goddamn slow. They're too slow. What about players in Pyro? How are they supposed to navigate Pyro with no shields from the solar flares? Are they just going to be stuck in space stations all day? You know what I'm saying? What about the ships that don't have quantum drives? How are they supposed to access higher speeds? Can you explain that? You know, I wouldn't have an issue with master modes if you guys were being honest about why we're getting it. Now, I've probably figured it out of why we're getting master modes. But I think you're lying to the rest of the other player base. And doing this little, it's not gaslighting, but trying to make it seem like there's so many issues with the current flight model. There really isn't that many issues with the current flight model. Okay? They're just not. Not at least in my opinion. Because pilots that know how to stay close in the fight will stay close in the fight. Pilots that don't know how to stay close in the fight won't stay close in the fight. And it's up to you whether you want to learn or not. I like that system a lot more. Is the missiles and stuff broken? Yes, but you guys have done nothing to fix it. Not ever. You just chalk it up to say that, oh, it's a server problem. Well, fix your damn servers. How about that? Are we getting master modes because your servers can't keep up? So you want me to fly slower because you have bad servers? That's not my fault. I've done my part by backing the project, by spending over $1,000 on this project. I've done my part. I deserve servers that can keep up with the speeds of my ship. That's what we all deserve. We all deserve servers that can keep up. So if you want to do like this thing to where you're telling us that we got to slow it down for whatever reason, be honest with me. I value honesty over anything. Just be honest. Just tell me the truth. Like, oh yeah, we're doing Squadron 42 like this because we want to put this game on a console. And the flight model is too complicated for console players. We can work around that problem. We can work on that issue together, but don't tell me that I need to slow down because it doesn't create good combat. BS. I've seen plenty of good combat videos out there. And the thing about the current flight model, it allows you to choose your combat style. You can either be a guy that does the mid-range or you can be a knife fighter. Now there's only really one combat style. There's no more individuality when it comes to the combat.
But in general, I was
Catch up on this comments. Problem is they're in an echo chamber like fuck yeah, best update. Yeah, dude, like camp. Like I go on the Twitch and I look at the Star Citizen live streamers and I see the guys that are in master modes. And then I ask them, I'm like, hey, like, what are your honest opinions on master modes? And they're like, oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread. Then I see CIG devs in the chat. I'm like, oh, that's why you're saying this. And it was a repeated pattern that I saw of live streamers doing the master mode stuff with devs in their chat. So I'm like, oh, well, we're not going to have an honest conversation here because you have friends at CIG. But real friends tell friends the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. But like, hey, this has some issues. Like, this isn't perfect. Here are some ways that we can go about making it better, right? And you don't have to take everything that I say, but at least acknowledge what we're saying. But every time you go into one of these live streams on Twitch with these people in master modes, they're acting like it's the best system ever, right? And especially like when they're on that planet with in the atmosphere and it's all lagging about and they're like, oh, this is great. I'm just like, you're getting 15 frames per second. How is this great? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. The most should be energy dependent, being able to use full shields, full weapons, full boosts, etc. It's all about energy management. I like that idea, Drop Hammer. You can see they don't value critical feedback by their choice to only support creators with positive outlooks. Exactly. CIG could say that the model doesn't allow for shields and weapons high thrust at the same time. They could say that too. Let's not talk about the desync on ground at walking speeds. Exactly. You know, you go into a bunker, for instance, that has nothing to do with flight speeds. But I shoot at somebody and they disappear, and now they're behind me, and I just got shot in the back. Now I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about PvP ground combat for a second. Is that too fast too? Do we need to walk to do ground PvP combat? Because most of the time, if you're shooting at another player, they're not in the same place. You have to be basically like right up on them to kill them. A simple explanation could be that an SCM shields, thrust, and weapons get 30% available power. To go above SCM requires thrust to use 70 to 90% so weapons and shields have to shut down, or at least go to a minimized state, right? You know, trying to snipe somebody at Jumptown or on Pickers Field, you kind of have to guess where you're shooting. You have to guess where they're going to be. calling for PvP confirmed 4.0, exactly. Like, I don't think like we have an issue with combat speed. We have an issue with servers not being able to keep up with all the things that are happening simultaneously. Now they say that server meshing is supposed to fix a lot of these issues. Well, you know what? We don't have server meshing just yet. So we can't say for certain that server meshing will solve these problems. We can hope that it can, but until we actually test it, we don't know. So I'm not going to sit on here and say that server meshing is going to solve all of the server problems because I don't know that. There's no way for me to know that. There's no way for me to tell you guys that. And then again, I'm not a server guy. I can't tell you anything about servers and how they operate or how they perform. Okay? I simply can't. And I'm not going to. I'm not going to try. I lean to people like Kenup. I lean to my other friend Carly, who does these things for a living, to tell me this information. So it's not really about the gameplay or us being too fast. For me, it's server issue, and they want to sell this game on console. And that's what it boils down to.
I was very happy with the amount of of feedback and the diversity of the feedback that we got. Even some of the negative feedback, because
I mean, they can't fix the desync walking. That's what we're saying. Like, you go into a bunker and the NPCs are basically teleporting around. You try to get into a PvP gunfight with a player in the live server and they're desyncing around. Like, there's been times where we try to pirate somebody at Brios or at Pickers, and they come out of their ship and I can literally see them in my scope, like, teleporting across the screen. It's like, well, how am I supposed to shoot this guy, get a good shot on this guy when he's literally teleporting? You have to be right up on somebody to kill him. It's crazy.
AC, MM, or the master mode, AC mode, experimental mode.
There's one time I was on Pickers Field and I was literally shooting a guy in the back, right? And he disappeared. I'm like, where the fuck did he go? I had no idea where this guy went. It's like, the fuck? Couldn't even pirate somebody because the desync, man.
We purposefully added some stuff in there just to try out how things feel. And some of the feedback, even when it was negative, quite often it actually matched up with our expectations, which also helps us to know that we're on the right track, right? So,
that's a fantastic point, Navy. I'm sorry for interrupting you. I want to make sure I don't want to lose that. Sometimes you test a thing you think is bad. This is an aspect of our project and all of game development that sometimes I think gets lost. Like, why would they put that out? And sometimes it's like, well, we think it might be bad. We think maybe that's not the way we want to go. We have
Yeah, the servers are suffering. It's a lot, but if they fix a few things, it could be fixed, but that takes work and time, and CIG never finishes anything. This is true. Like, we haven't got like a finished feature for anything in like forever since I've been playing the game. It's always we get features that are level 1 or level 2, but it's never complete. Like dude, like, please start giving us completed features. Like, throw master modes into the oven and wait until control services and all the other things are done, and then give it to us in one nice complete package. And I think it'll be more well received. That's just my suggestion.
Mechanism in these experimental modes for Arena Commander where we can test it. It's like we don't have to guess. We don't have to wonder if maybe that's not the way. We can actually put it out for testing and then know. So sometimes, and you're going to see this as experimental modes continue, as the what's the other PTU called? Experimental PTU or whatever it's called. As that continues, we're going to use it to test things we're uncertain about. We're going to use it to test things that maybe even somebody's like, I don't really think this is the way to go, but I know one way to find out.
Yeah,
and to put it out there.
features.
So
whatever they call it.
Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind sometimes when you want to put out. And I also want to say, it would be very easy. It would be very easy to write off a lot of the negative feedback as people don't like change. And I'm sure that applies to some percentage of folks out there. I'm sure there are some percentage of folks out there who aren't giving it a chance.
He looks so
because they
stressed
just
doing
don't
this
like
right now.
But it would be naive and stupid and dishonest, and it would not be effective for us to just hand wave all of that feedback with that. There are people out there who simply liked and preferred the other way, and that's valid. That's a valid point, and it's one that we take in. It's one that I heard, like Rich and all of us were on the line for a long time before the show started, and you know, and we take that responsibility very seriously. And I'm speaking on their behalf right now because maybe it's easier if I do it, but we know that this is a change. We know that there are people out there who genuinely liked the old way and stuff. We believe this is better for the longevity and the lifespan of the game. And so we're trying.
No, you think this is better for the company to sell Squadron 42. This is what you think. You're not telling us that because you guys are being dishonest. And I'm going to continue to say that until somebody from that company says the real reason why we're getting master modes. I'm going to continue to say this until you guys admit it. Just admit it. If you guys admit it, then we can get past this whole thing. But the timing just lines up too perfectly. It's 9 months from, not 9 months, but like 7 months from the a potential announcement for the release date of Squadron 42. Okay? 7 months away. So you're going to put this in the game. We're going to essentially test this feature for 7 months. You're going to iron out any issues that are with the system. That way you can double back to Squadron 42 before you announce the game and fix any potential issues that that flight model may have.
We're trying this right now. We believe in it. We've been talking about it since 2 Citizen Cons ago when we first introduced it. So I would like to encourage you to stay the course, keep trying it, try it in the PTU, try it in every other situation, allow us to continue tuning it, allow us to continue developing it. And everybody that I know, everybody I've talked to here, both on the show and off the show and whatnot, is really excited about the potential of this. So I hope you give it the chance. Because I want you to like playing Star Citizen. So.
We like playing Star Citizen. We don't like being lied to when we play Star Citizen. Now, see, here's what I'm going to do when this goes live, right? Or even in the PTU. I'm going to get a ballista. I'm going to park it outside of Shubin SCD-1 along with my Storm. And I'm going to shoot any player that I see in nav mode. I'm shooting them down. Why? Because I can. That's why. Who's going to stop me? They're going to have one or two options. Either they're going to fly away, or they're going to go into SCM and drop flares, and at which point I will continue to shoot more missiles at them. Easy. Easy and fun.
The next big feedback. We're just in the feedback mode, so let's do
Because this is going to allow you to lock down places from traders being able to trade anything, especially like a Microtech SMO 22. Yeah, I'm going to try it there as well. I'm going to be out there catching you gold traders or whatever. Yeah, try to get away. It's a really fun idea. It's a really fun idea. Because they are allowing this. If they can't drop flares in nav mode, they're ducks. And I've already said this. I've been saying this since they announced master modes. They are ducks. Yeah, good luck turn. You want to turn your caterpillar around and try to get out of there? Good luck. Good luck, buddy. Get fucking luck. It's gonna be fun.
What do you guys
Traders
have to say
beware.
to people
They're coming for you.
who say that this is lowering the skill ceiling? Is this true?
Yes.
Is this false? Do you agree with it? Do you not agree with it? Does this make things easier?
Oh, that is a bit spicy. I would agree that at the moment, especially in the 1v1s, we have a lower skill ceiling. But
I think the skill ceiling only applies to 1v1s. That's really only really applies because And that's how people test who's a better pilot. People aren't testing who is a better pilot in a group setting, because you could have essentially one good pilot and a couple of not so good pilots and still do well in a group setting. It has to do with the 1v1s. This is what I'm talking about, the dishonesty. Just be honest.
At the same time, we're also lowering the entry, like the was it the skill floor? The skill floor to actually do PvP or
Yeah.
space combat in general, right? So I do think
After
that for the
1v1s,
longevity
just
of the
numbers.
game,
Who has more missiles, who has
change
more
the game right
ships?
now actually suitable. I think the question towards whether the skill ceiling is a little bit lower is the same question in terms of like, what can we do to make 1v1s better, right? Like it kind of steers in the same
speed.
environment, right? So basically, for me, from my point of view, it goes back to just making the flight dynamics a little bit more dynamic and a little bit better, so that people who are spending a lot of time in their ships, they learn what the ships actually can do, and so that the maximum performance envelope of a ship is not directly always available, but you have to work for it in order to get it.
I've made this analogy before, but I'm gonna make it again because we have some different people in the chat. So imagine, right? Imagine if you were a millionaire, right? You're a multi-millionaire, and you were like, "Man, I'm a millionaire now. I'm gonna go buy me a Ferrari SF90." No, forget a Ferrari SF90. You're gonna become Andrew Tate, and you're gonna go buy a Bugatti Chiron. Is that how he says it? Was that pretty good? Pretty good imitation of it. A Bugatti Chiron. Okay. And you get to the Bugatti dealership, and they're like, yeah, here's all the modes you can drive in your Bugatti. It's your Bugatti. You can drive it in, like, you have a normal mode. You have, like, whatever. I don't know what modes they have, but they tell you, like, okay, so here's the high performance mode. But in this mode, instead of giving your top speed, we're gonna cap it so that you can maximize performance of the car. And it's like, so I can't go 280 miles an hour in my Bugatti? They're like, no, not in performance mode you can't. Well, when do I go 280 miles per hour in eco mode? Why would I go that fast in eco mode? Because performance means handling and not straight line speed. I'm like, what? You would never buy a Bugatti. They would sell zero Bugattis. Say that about any sports car, they would sell zero. It makes no sense. It's not a high performance mode. High performance means you have all of your available horsepower to you. You have all of your available speed to you. And if you fuck up and crash, that's on you. Just like in, if you're a pilot currently in the legacy system, if you fuck up and black out and crash, that's on you because you don't know how to control your ship. I like McLarens. They're pretty sexy cars. I like McLarens.
That's at least what I read out of that.
Okay. Let's see. We're doing good. Let's cut through. Let's do some more of the big questions here. We're in our big question era here, in the center here. So let's take on racing. How will master modes make racing viable when SCM speed is too slow and the ship ain't? I'm just reading it. Ain't agile enough with nav mode. Is that true? This question came in a couple different forms in the questions, right? This is just the one I've chosen to read. But talk to folks who think this is having a detrimental effect on racing.
Okay, so I spoke with PET about this, what players mean by that, because technically there is no difference between what kind of like flight performance your ship has between SCM and nav mode. And nav mode is actually a little bit bigger because you have a wider velocity space available to you. So what we think that is, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, is the absence of the overly G advantages you got through from tricording in the past. The problem with tricording was always that that you get more acceleration when you go forward, left, and up, right? Because the accelerations on each direction, they actually accumulate. The problem is that the more acceleration a ship...
But that would actually happen in a zero-G environment. Because there's nothing else to resist you making those movements other than the physical limitations of your actual ship. So that would actually happen.
Already has, and the more spherical tuning is, that advantage can get up to 70% in the worst case, right? So that's why we cut down on these accelerations, and this basically deprived racers and high-skilled PvP players of the capabilities to quickly evade, because they couldn't access that acceleration anymore. So, and I believe that is part of the question why it is perceived that you're less agile in racing. Would you agree, Michael?
I would, and it's really an important question to understand our process a little bit, because we see comments like that, and it's easy to go, well, that's just wrong, and then just go, well, we should just dismiss that. But in reality, what we do is, well, why are they saying that? Let's look into the process, understand the context of what they're saying, and figure out what exactly is going on. And Yogi is exactly right. It's the tricording issue. You got a lot more acceleration from that, and it's much more noticeable if you're going faster. So it seems like when you're in nav mode, you have less control, even if necessarily the accelerations aren't different between nav mode and SCM. So we don't dismiss feedback even if it has sort of the wrong statements in it. We try to understand that context, understand what is that.
You don't dismiss feedback even if it has the wrong statements in it. What kind of statement is that? What kind of statement is that? You don't dismiss it even if it's wrong? I thought feedback wasn't about right or wrong, it was about perspective. So automatically you're judging somebody on their feedback based on if you think it's wrong or not? Fuck out of here, dude.
Are they getting at what could they do that they can't do anymore, and try to figure out if there's a problem there that we can address?
I have to imagine that every racetrack that's in the PU and created now was done with the old flight model in mind, and that there might need to be some revisiting of some of the racetracks for the new flight mode.
Yeah, I mean, this is like also absolutely true. The thing is, like, when you go fast,
great, more work.
The scale of things that
more
you see
work.
around you is also changing, because the feeling of speed is not based on how fast you are, but it is relatively how close things come by you, right? Like
no, speed is acceleration and deceleration. It's not how close things are. That's just perception. It's just how fast you accelerate and how fast you decelerate. You don't actually feel speed. You don't feel speed. You feel the effects of speed, which is acceleration and deceleration. Maybe somebody should have paid attention in physics class to know this.
Like, so
maybe this is why the speeds are all messed up.
Strictly speaking, if you have a racetrack which you can fly decently well with 1200 meters per second, you can have an equally challenging racetrack for the SEM speed envelope that has just much narrower tracks, as an example, right? So, yeah, I mean, the racing community in general was pretty critical about SEM, about master modes, and it also encouraged us to tweak a little bit the tricording limiters that we added and so on. But I do think that in order to allow better racing, we should probably look at different kinds of tracks. At this point, we are also not sure exactly how we're going to treat the post-SEM speed space in general. But this is still like a future topic. But all these things, they can still like change, and like when these things change and we think it's better for the game, then some other parts have to change or be adapted as well. That said, I would say the best racetracks that I could imagine is one where you actually need to swap between the modes, so that you have
no, because of the amount of G's that you can pull between those two modes. It makes no sense. It literally, like, why would you want to do that? Like, why? they think giving players less agency is going to improve gameplay. Yeah, it's just like, why if I'm racing, again, I use a sports car analogy for you, Yogi. If I'm racing my car, I want my car always in its optimal performance mode. Why would I want my car to slow down and switch my car into like an eco mode when I'm going through a tighter portion of the track? No, I still want all of my grip. I want all of my acceleration. I want all of my lateral G's that I can get out of my car. Like, what are you talking about?
Areas where you're supposed to like using your cornering speed
Yeah.
much more than other cases, right? Like, and then I don't know, you come around a corner, you see, oh, the next target is like, I don't know, 20 kilometers
field
away,
when you race,
swap to
right?
nav, go. We could even think about racing tracks later when we have the quantum boost mechanic to actually that require you to boost between, I don't know, a planet and a space station or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of things we can do. The main thing is just like racing will always work. However, the tracks, they might just be.
They're telling you right now, Yogi, that it's not working. Don't say that it's just always going to work. They're telling you right now that it's not working. So now, all of these racetracks that they've spent all this time making, they're gonna have to go back and redo, basically, because they're too big. The spaces between the points are too big. More work, more development time. This is what people in the chat were saying just like 10-15 minutes ago. They're just creating more work for yourselves. It's just ridiculous at this point.
They might just look different than now.
Lots of questions, both in the chat and in the Spectrum thread about how Master Modes works with multiplayer and stuff. What is the intended effect of changing to nav mode with respect to other players in a multi-crew ship? For instance, the entire crew of a Master Mode Hammerhead is unable to do anything while the pilot is in nav mode.
Yeah, when the pilot is in nav mode, the Hammerhead is traveling from A to B, and the Hammerhead is either escaping from combat or just simply going to another position. There's nothing to do for the turret gunners in that case. So when we're talking about like crew roles in the future, this would be the perfect time to, I don't know, swap out fuses or stuff like that and doing all the maintenance on your ship that you want to do.
Yeah.
Or, hear me out. Your turret gunners could be, I don't know, like looking at stuff to making sure there's no targets coming in on the ship. Because just imagine, right, if you're flying your Hammerhead from A to B, like Yogi's saying, and all of a sudden you're in a combat scenario and nobody's in their effing turrets. Now they have to come from wherever they are on the ship, you know what I'm saying, and get into the turret while the ship is making maneuvers, and they're going to be falling down and tripping and blacking out and all this stuff while your ship's being attacked. Man, perfect. Good.
And let's not forget that multi-crew gameplay is not the full breadth of the intended multi-crew experience that we want to build is not limited to just being turret gunners. This is one of the principal reasons
That's
Idris,
why
even
you
if the Idris were art complete and it's not art complete.
That's why you bring dedicated engineers on your ship that only do engineering things. And they stay in the engineering spaces. And you have turret gunners that do turret gunner things that stay in the turrets. Like, this isn't a hard concept to get. Like, you don't need all 8 people on your turret gunners to be engineers. Like, aren't they supposed to have aren't these ships supposed to have consoles just for the engineers? So is your turret gunner gonna have to get up and go back and forth between his turret gun and the engineering station? Like, come on, man.
But even if the Idris were art complete, why it's not? We don't just dump it into the precision universe. There will be a time and a period where the eye of the focusing eye of development will turn to, all the multi-crew gameplay necessary for these ships and stuff like this.
Well, let's talk about the Idris for a second. Let's talk about the Idris. Let's talk about these capital ships in master modes, particularly with combat in master modes for these capital ships. If you thought the Constellation was slow in master modes, how slow do you think your capital ship's going to be in master modes? Your capital ship is going to be basically crawling through space when you're in combat. And it's not going to turn well. So let's just paint a scenario where there's two Idrises in a fight. The Idris that can figure a way to get its railgun on target is the Idris that's going to win. Every single time. If you get into a situation where you can see the broadside of an Idris in combat, it's game over. The other Idris, screwed. Why? It's going too slow and they can't turn. The way the Idris was flying in the little testing thing that they did, the little contest they were doing, that's not how the Idris is going to fly in master mode. It's going to be going at least at a maximum 100 meters per second if you're lucky. You're going to get that much speed out of it in master modes. So that means I can basically sit at 3 or 4 kilometers with my ion, zoom in and just snipe the ship. Because weapon distances are going to increase. So why would I even get close? There's no reason for me to. If it's so effing slow, you're not changing the meta to where light fighters have to pay a price to get close, or an ion has to pay a price to get close. I'm just going to stay back. And I'm just going to slowly hit your ship until I blow it up. Or a Polaris comes and hits you with a size 10 EM missile that you're not going to be able to flare. And then I will go on to Spectrum and watch all of the Idris owners cry about their ships being blown up because they are flying way too slow. It's like, I can't turn my ship and shoot my railgun at anybody. Well, that's how they intended the game to be. So, don't blame the other players that are blowing you up. Talk to the people that designed the game, because that's how they intend for this to be. Well, we want combat to be close. Like, why would you get close? There's no reason to. There's like zero reason for you to ever get close to a capital ship, especially if it gets into SCM. Like, there's no reason. You know what I'm saying? If you got a Polaris, you're going to be clapping a whole lot of Idris cheeks. I'm just saying that right now. All right? You're going to be clapping a whole lot of Idrises. They're going to be mad. They're going to be, typing crazy on Spectrum and in game chat. It's going to be glorious. I'm here for it. Because they are royally messing this up.
Resource network is the next big part of that and stuff, and you will begin to find
Omega LXs or any ships that are classified as racers should keep the same mode currently somehow, or maybe nerf the weapons. Maybe nerf weapons for racing, maneuvering, or performance. Yeah, it would be GG's. Mine only has a super laser on it. What's even worse, it would make the co-pilot shoot the gun. Bank it. Yeah, it's game over already. I need to go back and revisit my Idris versus Polaris video. Make an update to it, a Master Mode edition. Because if we can speculate, if we can use the Constellation to speculate capital ship speeds, because it's currently the biggest ship that you can fly in Master Modes, it ain't looking good for the Idris, man. It's not. It's not looking good.
more and more uses for multi-crew people than just sitting and firing in turrets. Because we all want that very much, and Resource Network is the next big push on that. And then there will be many others after that. How does the power triangle relate to master modes?
Mr. Phil says, "Thank you for your take on stuff. It helps make sense of this stuff for me." You're welcome. All I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to ask the relevant questions that, one, nobody's really saying the things that I'm saying, right? Some people are saying some of the things, like with the speeds and and all that, but I'm telling people from my perspective why this is happening, the real reason why it's happening. And this is what people are not talking about, because people on either side of the conversation, they have skin in the game with CIG. They want to be a partner with CIG to give away ships and things like that. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to do ship giveaways out of my own pocket because that's real. Because I didn't have to get on my knees for CIG. You know what I'm saying? I can give away ships out of my own pocket because I do it because I actually care about my player base, and I don't care about looking good at CIG. I don't care about being their friend. I don't care about them inviting me nowhere. I don't care about being an Evocati tester. I don't. I want to create a community that enjoys playing this game, and we go out and we do what we do and we have fun. That's why I do this, right? And I will always be honest in what I'm saying. Always. All right. So, and I appreciate you for being here. I really do.
As an example, nav mode does not even have weapons or shields available. So does the power triangle just not do anything in nav mode?
It does.
Goddamn right, Mr.
Actually,
E.
there's a misconception that the shields and weapons are powered off. They are powered on because while you're on nav mode, they're still regenerating. They're just not effective or active, so to speak, right? So when you're in nav mode, nah, you always.
Rewind that back. That's a very important thing to talk about here.
So does the power triangle just not do anything in nav mode?
It does. Actually, there's a misconception that the shields and weapons are powered off. They are powered on because while you're on nav mode, they're still regenerating. They're just not effective or active, so to speak, right? So when you're in nav mode, nah, you're always active. So as I said, the only thing that we currently have in is that when you're in nav mode, the regeneration rates of your weapons and shields are a little bit lower. But whether we keep that or not is a different question. So your guns, they still regenerate ammunition. Your shields are actually not, they're not regenerating in your shield phases, they're regenerating into a buffer. But when you swapping back from nav mode to SEM, that buffer is then filling up the shield phases quite quickly, and it cannot be, and when this happens, that process cannot be interrupted by any hits. So when you come out and your spool time is over, you have the full available shield strength to you.
Will we be able to use countermeasures in nav mode?
No.
At the moment, not. We're honestly...
See, Mesa, and this is why I said we got to sit outside of one of these mining facilities or these underground... Well, I'll tell you what. Because the new facilities are going to be coming into the game, right? The new UGFs. I'm going to sit outside the UGF. I'm going to shoot everything that I can. I'm going to shoot as many players down as I can come into a UGF. And let me take down a common ray, too, while I'm at it. Let me take down a common ray. And let me shoot these ships down trying to come to the UGF. Because if I can't pirate you, I can't make money. Neither can you. We're going to be broke together. All right?
I'm not too... Or...
It's going to be easy. Because they're going to have to fight their way in. They're going to have to fight their way in. If you got ships, all you need is ships out there, right? Ships out there in SCM mode that are ready to lock on and shoot their missiles as well. Because either they're going to have to get into SCM mode and fight their way in and kill us, or they're going to stay in SCM and go away. They're going to have to ask us permission to go into the UGF. They're going to have to pay us, okay, to access the UGF. And we can set up on all sides of the UGF, so we have complete coverage. Okay, we can be out there with tanks, ballistas, storms. And we can make this happen. All right, we can lock that thing down and be like, you guys want to come in here, you got to pay. We can't pirate you, so to get in here, you got to pay. That's it.
shall I say, the team. We don't know yet if we're keeping this or not. I think it's actually behind the C-bar. At the moment, we don't see any reason to actually allow that because we're really fast, and we would like at least the opportunity that the counter gameplay against missiles has more to do with your maneuvering and nav mode than just putting out some...
Maneuvering in nav mode? Maneuvering? You can't shake an EM missile. Does this guy not play the game? Does Yogi not play this game? Does he not play? Does he not know what EM missiles do in the live servers? And you think just being in nav mode is going to make this easier to dodge an EM missile? My goodness. Sounds like he doesn't play. He doesn't know how bad missile spam is. But we're going to give my intention here, okay, is to give CIG plenty of data on how bad missile spamming is. Because most of the ships that are going to be coming into these UGFs are going to be cargo ships. And they're all going to get shot down. Sam, I'm telling you now. They will all be shot down. Period. Unless they pay. You gotta pay. If you pay us, you can come in. Be cool with that. You know, pay. You know, give us some money. Slide us a little something. You know, I'm talking about like $1 million or so. Like, what you picking up? Are you trying to get some gold? Are you trying to get some barrel? Like, what commodities are you trying to pick up here? Are you trying to do a mission? Like, what are you trying to do? Oh, well, you're gonna make sure that you can't do that because we can't actively pirate because QEDs are not gonna work. So this is gonna be our gameplay loop.
Putting out some countermeasures. Actually, maybe Brenton Bayo, could you maybe talk about how this is currently being used in the arena modes, arena commander modes?
Sure. What we see is that people are using missiles to counter someone moving into nav mode. So typically when somebody is moving into nav mode, there's a spool up period. And if you're paying attention to the signature, you can actually see an EM spike on the ship when they go into nav mode. And so people who are skilled and understand what that looks like can already start to spool up their missiles to sort of counter that, or they can watch the speeds. They can watch the rate of closure or the rate of separation that they're seeing, which is available on the UI, and they can start to lock on a missile and launch one to sort of counter that and force them either to drop out of nav mode to launch countermeasures or to figure out a manual way of evading or take a hit from a missile.
See, that works in Arena Commander. That does not work in live. And this is why I don't want to test this anymore in Arena Commander, because it's not a reflection of the live servers. Arena Commander is a vacuum. Okay? What you're saying works perfectly in a vacuum, right? But when you have like a Talon Strike with a bunch of size 3 EM missiles locked onto you, you're not getting away from that. You're not going to be able to outrun that. You're not going to be able to outmaneuver that. Not in live. Not anything that we've seen in the past. I've been playing this game since 2022, I think. Yeah, I think it's been that long already. And I've never seen a way to get around EM missiles. People have been complaining about this, at least that I know of, for the past at least 2 years. And there's been no update to either give people more flares to have the option to dodge more missiles or more chaff in their ships to be able to counter missiles. There's been none of that. It's just like they've just ignored missiles completely. Completely. It's like, oh, we like they just don't care. And we can see that. Can't wait to see Missile Worm is going to look so great with frames now. Yeah, me too. That's just what I'm saying, Brent. I can't wait. I can't wait. It's going to be great.
There's some balance things I think we could probably talk about in the future to figure out, how to get that to work a little bit better. But it is interesting gameplay, and it does add a little more spice to the use of missiles than we had before.
Missiles are already spicy.
And I think it just
missiles have been spicy. What are you talking about,
again,
man?
I haven't seen a fraction of what you've seen. Some folks dropping chaff and then jumping and then switching into nav mode, which is a tactic that's viable because the chaff can't be fired in nav mode. And I want to clear that I'm seeing the live chat here. You're saying that right now, the thought is that it's not usable in nav mode. That doesn't mean that some very compelling argument can't be made.
I intend to make that
change your
compelling
minds.
argument.
See,
traders and Care Bears, let me get my mic. I'm actually here for you guys. I'm doing this to protect you. Okay? So just bear with me during 323 while I relentlessly get you in game and shoot your ships down with missiles, with a bunch of EM missiles. And just bear with me because this is for your benefit. I'm doing this for you so that in the future you can navigate the verse safely. But until then, have these missiles. All right? Until then, have these missiles.
I don't know. I don't know how many times we can say this through the course of the decade I've been doing this one out. It's everything you see and everything you hear in ISE and in SCL is work in progress. It's where the thing is now. At the moment, we're having this conversation. There are things in ISE that change the day after.
I'm going into the evil arc right now. And he's saying that, all the ISE and like all this stuff is about how things currently are in the game, which is fine. No one's saying anything about the future. Everything that we base and we talk about on this channel, at least my channel, we talk about things how they currently are. And Master Mode, how it currently is, my boy, it's trash. It's trash. It's not. There's no way that you can compel me that Master Mode is better than the current flight model that we currently have right now, because it's not. It just isn't, right? There's nothing that, other than me playing the game in a live environment, is going to get me to change my mind. What I've seen so far, I've seen enough, and I played Free Flight and I've played Squadron Battle enough to determine that this is not a good system for me. Now, I will hold my complete reservation until we get into the live server and I start shooting down these players. And, I may love it. I may love the fact that people are flying around in nav mode. I may love that. They're going to be, especially ammo on Hurston and Microtech, that may be great. Pickett's Field's going to be a lot of fun. All these places, it's going to be a good time. And so I'm going to reserve or hold my reservations until then. All right.
The show goes out. And the show goes out, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, we changed this," and I'm like, "Couldn't have that information just 4 days earlier? That'd have been cool." It happens. It's part of doing all of this outreach in the middle of our development. It's part and parcel. We have a phrase where we call the truth of the moment. We're always presenting the truth of that moment while leaving room for a better idea to come later on. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Is like, this is about the now. It's when we talk, we're talking about the now, but nothing. We don't sit here and go, we're never going to do this or we're never going to do that. We've made certain decisions based upon things we've learned and things we've seen along the way, but those things change, and so we're definitely not afraid of.
So let me ask you this, right? You say things can change along the way. If along the way that you see Master Mode is not working, and these speeds are not working the way that you want them to work, are you willing to change the speeds? Because based on what you just said, leads me to believe that you would be willing to change things in light of new information. Now, that sounds great. Now, are you willing to put that into practice?
Changing that rule, in that circumstances, it's just one thing that's open. We thought it might work that way, but if it doesn't work that way in game and the feedback says otherwise, we'll just, we can change it.
There's a bit here. We focused a lot on the native, because part of what we're here to do is to address, some of those concerns and stuff like this. But there's been a very healthy groundswell of positive feedback about Master Mode. It's one of the reasons we're so excited about putting it out in 323 and seeing the work in testing. Mike, you mentioned being able to check the EM readings and stuff. The next question I have here is: are there any changes to generalized stealth mechanics with master modes. Besides being able to tell when they're switching, are there any other changes to
Maybe how much you
people
spend, and then we'll
do
talk.
work and missions?
Yeah.
Yogi? Anybody?
Yeah, it might
Oh.
be a question for Yogi.
Yeah.
We have put in changes recently, not specifically to master modes. People might have noticed them actually in 3.22.1. Broadly, there's been some changes to signature readouts and how those work, thanks to some of the the communication between my team and Yogi and Rich's team, to be able to kind of go over that. But there's been some changes, and those have been inherited into the master mode stuff as well.
What role, if anything, does the component rework, the resource network? Like again, we don't want to go into the full breadth of the resource network and stuff, but is there? I think there were a number of questions, probably only 3, but of people who are wondering if this work is completely separate from resource network, or if this work overwrites. Like, does the
Master Modes is coming out to the big nerf so they can sell the new ships, a new set of play to win ships that will overpower the master mode nerf. Watch, it's coming. Very well could be. It could be said that the F8's pay to win and like all this other stuff, but we'll see how it works, because there were some ships that I was initially excited for, like the Mirai Heavy Fighter that was supposed to be coming out, like the really big Fury that they're supposed to be making. I was excited for that one. Not so excited for it anymore with master modes. I wanted to be a person that did a lot of bombing runs on facilities and stuff like that, but master modes has made bombing gameplay, at least surface to air to ground bombing gameplay, essentially kind of useless now because you're just going so slow. Like imagine trying to go and bomb something, right? You literally have to fly in, switch to SCM, bomb, and then fly out of SCM and switch to the nav mode and fly back out, which makes no sense because by the time you get in to bomb something, you're going to be missile locked. So just think about something like, an Eclipse or like a Retaliator, something that's not supposed to stick around in combat, are now going to have to stick around in combat. Right? I'm excited for my ship if XYZ, this and that, and everything else. If it actually happens, it's a reach if you think about it. It is a reach. It is a reach because now, like, I think master modes in and of itself is going to kill a lot of ship hype, because people are gonna wonder, like, okay, well, how is this ship going to handle with master modes? Like, what archetype is it going to be in? They're going to have to explain all these things when the ships are in concept now. Like, what's its role going to be? Like, what's it going to be used for? And I think that it's going to kill a lot of ship hype, and it's probably going to hurt their sales to a degree. I don't think it's going to hurt them to the point to where they will panic, but I think they will sell less ships because of master modes.
archetype mean we can no longer tune our components, we can no longer change the performance profiles of our ships because they have an assigned archetype now because of master modes? Are these exclusive or are these complementary features?
They should allow it in both modes. You can fly faster without shields or fly in a more protect pattern with shields. Yeah. I don't understand, like, why, like I said, in Pyro, like, flying without shield is stupid. Like, why would you do anything in Pyro without shields? Especially if you don't have good shield generators. Like, your ship takes literal damage from EMPs. Not EMPs, but from, like, basically the EMP from the sun, right? But your ship takes damage from solar flares. So why would you fly anywhere on a planet's surface in nav mode? It makes little to no sense. I know that you get warnings and all this stuff, but, like, why take the risk? Because sometimes, like, these flares happen back to back and simultaneously, like, 3 and 4 times. So, like, why would you continue just to fly your ship in nav mode? Like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
I think they're definitely going to complement each other. We're definitely working in sync with each other on what these features mean for the flight. And I don't think you're going to see anything taken away. I think you're going to get more out of this. You know, you're going to be able to move your ship and your components in more directions in the future. You know, which will kind of strengthen what.
But I thought you were talking about things as they are now, but not talking about things in the future. See how they do like this kind of like double talk shit? I thought we're talking about the present moment.
A ship means, you know, depending on the choices you make for that ship. You know, and it's critical to the flight, it's critical to the combat performance, you know, and it's critical to that moment in time. You know, so if you've made certain choices, it's going to mean certain things. You know, let's say.
I hate thinking about the multi-universe theory. It makes me think there's one out there where CIG actually gets everything done and it's great, and I'm stuck in this shit one with this team. Yeah, it sucks, right?
You know, your signature and heat goes up, you know, in sync, you know, it's gonna, you know, make you more, you know, kind of vulnerable and stuff like that. So the player's gonna have more choice in the future. So
some of what you've said about, you know, nav mode being intended to, you know, help you escape and stuff is obviously made some players who dream about being a bounty hunter, you know, kind of nervous. It's like, oh well, you know, if the mode switch is designed to help people, you know, be able to get away. Obviously, we're going to have to do something to help with folks who want to pursue a bounty hunting profession. I know, Yogi, you already said you know, a lot of the QED work and stuff is still to be decided and stuff. But what are your initial thoughts? What are your initial thoughts on what we can do to make master modes work for players who specifically want to catch up and capture their prey when we've created a mode designed to help them get away?
Well, I mean, it still boils down to that you cannot just like if somebody wants to escape and he has the better equipment to do that and he has more experience and skill, or she, then that ship might escape. But if you want to work as a bounty hunter, you are reliant on having very dedicated equipment anyways. One of the things we're thinking about here is the importance of distortion weapons, since the quantum drive is the thing that allows the velocity advantages or speed advantages in nav mode. We're thinking about making the quantum drive, for example, very susceptible to distortion damage. But being susceptible to distortion damage means that the attacker needs to bring either a EMP device, or they need to bring or swapping out some of their hardpoints, which are actually distortion weapons. And distortion weapons are always going to be less effective as in taking down shields. In fact, in 3.22.1, we actually did a pretty big change to the distortion system so that
bring distortions, even though we nerf distortions. Right. Bring distortions, even though distortions don't work. Also, I believe the Zeus is going to have the pilot weapons are going to be size 4s. There are no size 4 distortion repeaters, so you're going to have to rely on distortion cannons, which don't have the same range. Right? So now you're going to have to rely on your turret gunners using distortion weapons while you try to take down the shield so your turret gunners can hit the components with distortion damage. The fuck exactly? How am I gonna EMP if I can never get close to you? Are you gonna make the EMP field like 20 kilometers? Like, what are you gonna do?
Shields are very resistant against distortion damage, so you need to bring energy weapons to actually bring them down, which again goes a little bit more in the direction of like as a player
to be a fly on the wall during some of these meetings about changes. Yeah, what I would give, well, I wouldn't give a whole lot for that, just be honest. But I would definitely like to know. I would like to be like, man, this must be interesting.
It's you being forced just to bring specialized equipment. But if you have specialized equipment, then you are absolutely still able to do your bounty hunting stuff.
But what specialized equipment? Because pretty much all weapons and components in the game are the same, right? So for combat, there's a meta. You get Panthers, you get military shields, military components. Are there going to be other components that we're going to be introduced that are specific for bounty hunting? Like, what's going on here? Oh, this that's cute. Has me in a Q lock. Let's let me outfly him. One or two things will happen. I'm going to get away, or you will drop me, and I will jump. Right? Yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
A little bit of an equation is, or part of the equation is there. How big are the ships that you can trap and snare, right? But that's also something we need to have yet to answer internally, because there are some situations where, there's a tiny little ship. Why can I not jump away with my 890, right? And so on. So, yeah.
And it's not.
Listen, guys. Listen to what they're saying. Buy a Zeus Mark II. That's what they're saying. That's essentially it. Buy a Zeus Mark II. And what's really messed up about this is the Mark II doesn't have a snare, so you can't pull anyone out of Quantum. Right? So, do you also need, now that you have a Mantis, right? Do you also now need to bring another extra ship to hold that ship there when you pull it out of Quantum? So now I have to bring 2 ships. So now I have 4 people. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
It's not a discussion that is exclusively for you and your team. Obviously, it will also involve gameplay designers. The people who are assigned to build out the bounty hunting career will obviously have a say in that kind of stuff, and what kind of tools and methods we can make available to them.
In order to pirate or to bounty hunt, you will have to have a snare dampener and probably EMP with enough crew to run distortions, and then you have to find them. Exactly.
To work within the master mode system to still achieve your stuff. It's the bounty hunting dream. The bounty hunter dream is core. It's one of those core things. We've talked about it forever. It's
right. But if the snare forces them to SCM, but the Mantis is the only one with a snare, right? Or does the Warlock also have a snare on it? I thought the Warlock was an EMP ship. Because the Antares doesn't have a snare, and the Mark II doesn't have a snare. It's just the Mantis. There's only one ship in the game with a snare. And what they're basically saying is, if you snare somebody out of Quantum, right, and you get an 890, right, you get a streamer party with an 890 on it, right? Essentially what they're saying is like, oh, that's cute. You can just fly away from us. That's cute. Little mosquito Mantis, like, yeah, we just fly away from that. What are they saying here? So then you have to bring, no, this dude does not have a snare. It's just a dampener, just a QED. Just a QD device. Yeah, it's just a Q. Like, you can't pull anyone out of Quantum. You can prevent them from going in, but like that's what I'm saying. Like, you're gonna have to bring a Zeus anyway. So the Zeus is gonna need a snare as well as a dampener. It's gonna need both. If he's saying what he's saying, the Zeus is going to need a snare and a dampener. Because if you have a Mantis, you're gonna need to bring more fighters anyway. So if I'm going to need to bring a Zeus as well to keep somebody there, then shit, why not just put a snare on the fucking Zeus? Makes no sense.
It's a. I can speak, if I'm allowed to speak for CR here. It's something he's very, very interested in, always has been and stuff. So while we may not have specific answers or details for it now, when it comes time, when for Bounty Hunter V2 or whatever version we're on, I honestly can't remember the name now. You can expect to learn more information.
That part, Mr. E, they're gonna sell another snare ship, a bigger one, a bigger snare ship. Oh, guys, look, you can't snare with the Mantis anymore because the 890 is too big. You can't get cargo ships anymore. Buy this new ship that has a snare that's appropriate for this gameplay loop.
Information about it when that time comes. All right, so we're technically at time, but I want to do, if I can, I want to do 2 more questions. Can I do 2 more questions, guys, before I let you go?
Yes, let's go.
Yeah.
I asked you.
Yeah.
I asked you live so that you can't say no without looking like a jerk. These are questions more about balance. This question came in and says, what are your red lines in terms of balance? Are there any parameters that you're simply unwilling to adjust, like SEM speeds or IFCS slowdown? Is there anything off the table right now? It's like, no, it's this. We won't even listen to this. We won't even consider this. Maybe another game company person would never ask his developers this, but I want to see it. I want to know. Talk to these people. Is there anything that's actually off the table?
Yeah, I was thinking they were going to do that for sure with capital ships, more ships. Yeah, more ships, more money.
Okay, so nothing is off the table. Of course, we're somewhat more resistant towards certain things than others. Obviously, like the SEM speed limits are a couple of was brought up by the community quite a lot. But then again, we're getting a lot of advantages from that. So we will try to address the worries that we have.
If the community is bringing up something to you, and you're actively not listening to it, then by all accounts, you're not interested in the feedback that the community is giving you. If they're telling you something is too slow, then it's too slow. You should listen to that and be like, okay, well, let's see what happens if we, I would be more inclined to be more okay with master modes if they go, okay, we're going to try these slower speeds out, and then we're going to adjust them over time. We're going to see how fast we can make the speeds without getting the combat too far apart. And then we're going to find that sweet spot, and we're going to put the speeds there. But they're not even doing that. They're just like, no, we're just going to do this. And this is, if you complain to us about speeds, it's on deaf ears pretty much. Right? It's essentially what he's saying. They're not going to listen to anyone talk about speeds. If you complain about it, oh well. That's essentially what they're saying.
Example, usually when people say, oh, the speeds are too slow, this means either they cannot go fast from A to B, or it means they're not evasive enough, right? But these problems can be solved.
You can't be evasive.
Way. So concerning the speeds,
run that back.
This means either they cannot go fast from A to B, or it means they're not evasive enough, right?
How can you be evasive when interceptors and light fighters can now shoot at 2.4 kilometers? How are you supposed to evade that kind of fire if you can't tricord? How are you supposed to evade? Explain your model to us. How are you supposed to evade when you've taken the ability to evade away? You don't have enough boost. You're capped at a certain speed. You've capped the thrust on maneuvering thrusters. So how are you supposed to evade fire when they can spread at 2.4 kilometers? How are you supposed to evade? The only things that you can really evade are turrets, or certain turrets, because they don't have good firing arcs. But in terms of other fighters, you really can't evade them because they can follow you in all directions. So how are you supposed to evade? Explain this to me. I actually want to know. Okay, can you guys explain how you're supposed to evade when you can't move as fast and they can shoot farther? I don't, am I missing something here? Again, potentially I could be the crazy one. Very well, it's a possibility. It's something that I'm willing to at least explore. Chat, if I'm crazy, please let me know. But I don't know how we are supposed to evade if we can't go fast and they can shoot far. Can someone tell me, please? I'm very interested to know, how we can evade, how we're supposed to evade. What inputs should I input to my ship to evade somebody that can spread their shots over 2 kilometers when I don't have the ability to use all of my thrusters at once? I just want to know.
but these problems can be solved in a different way. So concerning the speeds, we will try to be rather conservative with changes. It does not.
No, I'm going back to my triangle combat pattern where you have a higher acceleration. It might work. It might work with lower speeds too. It might work, but the issue is, especially like in 0G, right, is the mirroring, right? You can't punish somebody for being a bad pilot, essentially. You know, I mean, you can, but even that in and of itself is a little bit more difficult because, like, if we're building light fighters, it's a mirror match, so it's much more difficult to push in on them, right? It's like if you go into a free flight in Arena Commander, right? You can literally see them like orbiting each other like binary stars. That's how the fights look. They look like binary stars just orbiting each other. You know, you don't really get like the crazy movement that you would go into the normal free flight, where you would see all types of different movement. They're normally just like this, and they're more just moving back and forth around each other, just orbiting, right? That's what you see. Where it's this way, this way, this way, this way. That's all you really see. You don't really see anyone getting past somebody and turning and being able to turn back on them and getting on their 6. If I can better manipulate my placement on the battle space and make it more about skill, but that might be the problem. Right, but it's hard to manipulate your space because your movement in any space is capped to certain velocities, right? So it's just let's just go back to the example about fighting somebody that's the same size as you, same size, same speed, same everything, right? The only way for you to really get on them is for them to overextend a shot, to overextend a punch, to overextend a punch, right? But in master modes, there's really no way for you to get them to do that. There's no real way to bait them into overextending so you can get on their 6, right? Because if you see like their delta and they're coming in on you, well, all they're really gonna do is just slow down and meet you head on, right? And that's how the fight's gonna go. And this is like what I see mostly in the free flight, in the master mode's free flight, and even in the master mode's free flight, there's never any one-on-ones. Because the minute you get into a one-on-one fight with somebody in the master mode's arena commander, somebody else is coming to shoot you. You know, people don't fly in master mode's arena commander solo anymore. Everybody's in there with a buddy. Lower speeds but higher accelerations. Well, the accelerations being high is not the problem. The acceleration, like, it's like once you accelerate, you get to your max speed so quickly, right? Like you max out your speed so quick. So at least in the interim, they can play with acceleration values, which I think they've already talked about, but it still feels like the old flight model in terms of like how the accelerations feel, right? Your theory's not bad though.
Fixed, right? If our gameplay tests with the community show, shit, we should just add like 100 meters per second more, fine, we'll do it, right? But it needs to be going through a proper process internally, because like it's just not something that we can right away promise. But nothing, and I mean nothing is ever fixed, right?
Yeah, and I do think it's important to say that, like with any kind of virus stuff that we're tuning, we're always open to trying different things, but we've set out a framework of what we think works, and in the end, it comes down to a choice. Because before we had a lot, we had a lot higher speed, and that wasn't always positive. So we've made the decision based upon certain factors that a lower speed works better, but it doesn't mean that moving to a lower speed means it never has any negatives, because a choice is end of the day. We've made that choice to go slower, and we do think overall it's going to be better than the speeds we had before. But it's never going to be 100%, 10 out of 10. It solves every single problem that we have in the game. For example, because we're based in certain physical realities of flight, and kind of power performance and stuff like that. So we we're a little bit kind of tied to kind of physical realities more than kind of saying we're not going to change these numbers.
It's a sci-fi game. We're not playing make-believe. This is what I'm saying, guys. This is what I'm saying. Like, they go between, like, this idea of sci-fi, and they're like, well, we're trying to make it realistic, but, like, you have energy weapons. That's not realistic. You have shield generators, distortion weapons. None of that stuff is realistic. Like, you can make a reason for anything in a sci-fi game. You're only limited by your imagination at the end of the day. Now, I wanted to end this live stream by telling you something that happened to me during a live stream when I was being bounty hunted. This is when I was flying the Scorpius a lot. The Scorpius was like my daily driver ship, right? I was being bounty hunted. This is on a live stream, so I don't remember which one it is. I've done so many of them, I don't know anymore, right? But I was being bounty hunted, and I was being chased by a Constellation, a Hornet, and I was also being chased by, I believe, a Hurricane, a crude Hurricane, right? So what I knew was that the Scorpius was great at flying in the atmosphere. So what I did was I started low flying. I think I was on Daymar, and it was at nighttime. This was before they changed the lights, so you really couldn't, the visibility wasn't all that great. So I'm low flying, and I'm trying to dodge the missiles they're putting on me. And when they would come close, I would simply turn my ship around because I knew they were going to be flying. So the moment I turned around, I knew that I can get on them and I can shoot them. And I wind up shooting down 2 of their guys before I finally got shot down myself, right? And the reason why that's important is because I like the idea of the chase or being chased. Just because I have a bounty doesn't mean I have to stand there and fight you, especially if you outnumber me. Like, no, you're going to work for this bounty. You want this bounty, you have to come work for it. I'm going to run. And it's no different than playing GTA where you're running from the police. Could you imagine playing GTA and then when you go into cop chase mode and where you're being chased, or even like Need for Speed, they're like, no, we're going to lock your speed so you're the same speed as the police. It doesn't make any sense. Positioning should be king. And because I knew my ship had better maneuvering than those other ships, I was able to use that to my advantage and take down 2 other players before being shot down myself. And that's my entire point of why I think Master Modes is overall a flawed system, because players don't play the game like that. If somebody has a bounty, they're not going to sit there and try to fight you back. Most of the time, they're going to run. And I ran. I was like, let's let them chase me. Because either one or 2 things is going to happen. I'm going to shoot down a couple of their guys before they get me. Or they're going to crash into the ground. But that was, in my opinion, fun and exciting gameplay because I got to shoot down their players and they got to get my bounty. So at the end of the day, we all had fun. And we all laughed about it in chat. It was great. And they were like, hey, man, stop running. I was like, yeah, man, you got to work for this bounty. It was a little bit of cheeky fun. And that's what Master Modes ultimately, for me, is going to ruin in the game. I like the idea of being a bounty hunter and somebody trying to low fly away from me, trying to get me to crash into the ground, me not buying into it, me trying to get position on them. You're not going to have that in Master Modes. It's going away. And right now, at the current time, there's no way to really fix that other than giving us our speed back. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much my thing. We're going to finish this video up. If you guys have anything else, any other comments, concerns, put them in the chat. Let's have a discussion about this, because this is important. This is a feature of the game. And this is a feature that's going to really make or break the game. At least for a lot of people, I can see a lot of people leaving the game because of master modes. I mean, like, I've had enough. Sell their account, whatever. I hate when bounty hunters dictate how I should be taken in. I'm a criminal on the run. Exactly. Exactly. You have a right to be concerned, Dinge. You have a right to be concerned. You know. Yeah, they are going to ruin a lot of things. You know. Even like in a lot of the trailers and a lot of the vertical slice videos that they show of Squadron 42, they show people chasing other people being shot at the same time. That's not a realistic scene in master modes. Because, you know, I think they were using the Mercury Star Runner or something like that. They were running from some other ship. In master modes, the Mercury Star Runner is not outrunning anybody. It's gonna get caught. No amount of asteroids is going to help you outrun somebody. Don't care. If you have a more nimble, a fighter that has better acceleration, you're gonna get caught. Doesn't matter. I really want to see it in live environment. See the live or EPTU for me. Yeah, I'm excited for it to come into the PTU first, because we're really gonna see. And I know for a while in the PTU, for some reason, missiles just don't work. Hopefully they fix that issue and missiles work out the gate, so I can practice shooting people down. I can have my feel at it, shooting people down at these facilities, these UGFs, and we can provide valuable feedback. I'm gonna miss the chase. I really am. The idea of chasing somebody down is going away, and a lot of people don't like it, you know, to chase people down. But I think it's fun, because you actually have to work for it. You have to earn it, you know. And if I have a bounty, I'm gonna run too. I'm gonna see if I can make you crash into a mountain or some shit. Now, I'm not the best low flyer. I'm not the best pilot. I'm not at the top of any skill ceiling as far as flight goes in Star Citizen, but I know enough. You know what I'm saying? I can fly well enough to do combat, well enough to evade people. So why take that away from me? Why take it away? Why force me to making a decision to where I have to stand and fight? Why can I make the decision like I want them to crash into the ground? Right? Why, like, if I know that their ship can't turn as good as mine, why give them the opportunity to be able to not be able to, for me to use my ship advantages? Like I said with the Scorpius, I know the Constellation, the Hurricane, and the Hornet don't turn well in Atmo. I use my speed and I use my maneuverability to my advantage to get position on them, because I know they're dead set on catching me in a straight line, which they can do. But the moment I start turning, they can't turn as fast as I can. And I feel like you're gonna lose a lot of that with master mode, especially when they get into these baseline archetypes, these flight profiles, whatever they want to call it. I mean, they can't come up with names, but whatever they want to call it, it's going to ruin a lot of ships out the gate. I strongly feel like. I would be playing Lawless, EMS, QRF. Hey, that sounds like fun. It sounds like a lot of fun. But what do you guys think? Do you guys feel like with master modes, at least what we're being told right now, that our wings are being clipped? I would have to say yes. I would have to say there is no reason for me to believe that this is better than what we currently have, especially without control surfaces for ships. But I'm tired of tier 0, man. Just finish the feature. Just finish it. Like whatever time you need to take to finish the feature to where it's complete and ready to be tested in its full capacity, just do that. Because what winds up happening is they get into tier 0, right? And then they realize, oh, this doesn't work how we intended to work. So by the time they have the rest of the features, it's changed like 8 or 9 times. By the time it gets out of tier 0, like just finish it. You know what I mean? Like if it were any other, well, I was gonna say any other company, right? But we've seen in the past couple of years that a lot of companies are putting games out that are not complete, right? We're seeing a lot of this lately, and while I can appreciate the open development of Star Citizen, I can appreciate that they're being somewhat transparent about the development. It's still like if you're gonna tell us like, okay, master mode is coming, then we want to see master modes complete. I don't want to see a tier 0 master modes. I want to see complete master modes with atmospheric flight with control surfaces. Because that is a part of that flight model. How can you expect me to give you honest feedback about something that's incomplete? But this is the way that it's been, and it's, for me, it's a bad practice. Like they need to get out of this mindset of this tier 0, tier 1, tier 2. No more tiers. Is it complete or is it not complete? If it's not complete, then it doesn't go. Tier 0 just means we reserve the right to change the mechanic. Exactly. It gives them an excuse to just keep changing things. It's just like, we understand that change is necessary, especially when you're developing a game like this, right? We understand that. But at the very least, complete a feature. At the very least. Just do that. That's great. Complete a feature. Like, that's all we're asking. We're not asking you to release Star Citizen next month. Just if you're saying that master modes, like we're not even getting the new quantum travel experience with 323. So what's the point of doing things halfway? Like, we got to get out of that habit, you know, with this game, and even in your personal life. Just don't do shit halfway. If you just do it the right way, get it complete, and then make changes from a completed model, that's much better than having to do all this other rework. Just like with, the racing, if they knew 2 years ago they wanted to do racing, right? Why make these big ass racetracks when you knew Master Mode was coming? Now you have to go back and rework all of the racetracks because they're too big, right? They're too big now for Master Modes. So now you have to go back and do all that rework. You have to do all that artwork. You got to do all of that development. You got to waste time, money, and resources redoing all this stuff when it simply could have been, you just could have waited until Master Modes came out and then put racing into the game. But you were so feature hungry that you decided that it was a good idea to put these things into the game without them being in their final complete state. And this is the endless development cycle that we're currently go through, and that some players are quite frankly tired of. Like when he said that, Master Mode is not complete, I'm just like, well, why are we getting it? Like, I rolled my eyes. I'm just like, I'm tired of this. And this is why I don't stream the game as often as I used to. It's just because, like, after you do one thing, like, it becomes stale. Like, we need completed things in the game. Like, they did some of the FPS weapon stuff, but the rest of it's coming in 323. They gave us some of the character creation and stuff. The rest of it's coming in 323. Like, why can't we just get all of everything one time? That's all we're asking for. We're not asking for much. You know what I'm saying? So that's my review, guys. I say we're flying on clipped wings, which sucks, but it is what it is. I'm still going to reserve my final judgment until we get our hands on this in a live environment. And really, the PTU is going to be a good test, but it's still not the live environment. We all know that PTU tends to run a little bit better than the live servers do because it's not as many people trying to break things. So once it comes into the live server, that's when I'll make my final judgment on it. Solid review. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate it. The great clipping is coming. It is. I need to make a Ned Stark meme. Brace yourselves. Clipped wings are coming. Winter is coming. Thank you, Mr. E. I appreciate you being here and giving me feedback. Appreciate it. 07s to you. Yeah, you guys have a good one. Probably gonna be back on here later for some Hell Divers. They got the mech suits now, so we need to grind up to level 25 so we can get that stratagem. So probably gonna be back. I'm gonna grab some lunch and then we'll be back in like an hour or so for some Hell Divers.